Hello. I'm back, bitches. What's up? I haven't done a live stream in a while. I do have a couple things in the works, though, and I have a pre-recorded video that is almost done. I should be done editing it within a day or two, so it should be posted before the end of the week, which I'm excited about. So there's that. There is a new potential show I might kind of start. I don't know, it might just be a one-off. It might turn into a regular thing. So there's that as well. It was supposed to start tonight, but the person ended up being sick. So but tonight I wanted to discuss a debate or discussion I had last night on WhickTV's channel about Trump's recent remarks regarding his idea or implication to annex Greenland, even potentially Canada, and wanting to take back the Panama Canal. So even though, I did have a whole 2-hour discussion with this topic last night, there were, 5 other panelists, and, I'm not a great debater. I think I have really good arguments most of the time, but I'm not the best at articulating those arguments. So this stream, I'm going to re-go over the debate I had last night so I can kind of further articulate my ideas and further discuss this topic. And I do want to eventually open the panel up too later on. So let's see, here is the beginning of the debate. I guess we'll just start. I'm going to be honest, I didn't know much about this until I was asked to come on this panel, and I looked into it, and I think it's pretty wild. I thought some of the opinions said on this panel were really crazy. Some of the opinions I'm seeing across the internet seem pretty crazy. And even if let's say this doesn't happen, right, because it's very unlikely, I still think it's an important topic to discuss because people are taking this seriously and actually do think that these ideas are good ones and beneficial for our country. So yeah, we'll just get started.
In a minute to kind of have that little time with my base. How's everyone doing today? Oh, we missed one.
I'm doing well. You? How are you doing?
Skip this part.
Yep.
Welcome. We come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. Gang, have we a show for you today? Yesterday, in a press conference, Trump mentioned that he would not take military action off the table when it comes to Greenland and the Panama Canal. He's also been making allusions, some say it's jokes, others say it's serious, to perhaps annexing Canada, which brings up the concept that I want to talk about.
So maybe first, before I start this, let's just show the little clip of Donald Trump saying these things. Here, I'll let
today,
you guys can listen to.
Pax Americana, American hegemony, a unipolar world order as opposed to a multipolar world order, has for the last few decades, America been a unipolar leader in the world, Has that been good for the world overall, or should we move to a more multipolar system? All this and more we're going to talk about, and we have some wonderful guests to talk about it. First, we're going to give the mic to someone who hasn't been here in a while, but we're glad they're back. Corey Campbell, please give us your thoughts.
Was this just introduction?
All right, hopefully this shows the full thing.
I can't assure you, you're talking about Panama and Greenland. No, I can't assure you on either of those two. But I can say this, we need them for economic security.
Maybe this.
If we were to work under the assumption that you're serious about making Canada the 51st state of the United States, the leader of the Conservative Party in Canada said, under no circumstance will it ever be the 51st state.
Maybe he won't win, but maybe he will. I don't.
Points, you had suggested.
Listen, I don't care what he says.
Sir, real fast, you said you were considering military force to acquire Panama and Greenland. Are you also considering military force to annex and acquire Canada?
No, economic force, because Canada and the United States, that would really be something. You get rid of that artificially drawn line, and you take a look at what that looks like. And it would also be much better for national security. Don't forget, we basically protect Canada. But here's the problem with Canada. So many friends up there. I love the Canadian people. They're great.
First of all, I just want to point out, like, this artificially drawn line. Canada has, like, socialized health care. They might have, like, free college. Like, they just operate so differently from us. And they don't want to be a part of America. So acting like this is actually a reasonable idea is just beyond me to begin with.
But we're spending hundreds of billions a year to protect it.
And also, you did hear him say, right, he confirmed earlier, he was asked straight on if military use would be off at the table when, you know, considering taking over Panama, and he said, no, I can't take off military or economic pressure. I can't take those things off the table.
We're spending hundreds of
and he was talking about Panama and Greenland. So
billions a year to take care of Canada. We lose in trade deficits. We're losing massive. We don't need their cars. You know, they make 20% of our.
This is stupid too. We buy the most energy from Canada. I wish so I have a laptop and my OneNote documents don't transfer over to my computer. And when I tried to send them, they just sent like a blank page, which is really weird. So I had all these like notes and sources on my laptop I should have tried to work on that before I came on here. I forgot about that, but yeah, I'm sure I could find it easily. Let's see. Canada Energy USA. U.S. electricity exports have increased since September 2023. So we buy most of our energy from Canada. Hydropower, electricity, and crude oil. And Canada is also our largest export. There's dispute on whether it's Mexico or Canada, but we also export one of the most levels of energy also to Canada as well. So, and our exports have been increasing since September 2023. This came out November 2024, so just a couple months ago. For the better part of 2 decades, Canada has exported significantly more electricity to the United States than it imported. However, in the fall of 2023, electricity trade between the two countries became more balanced. So you can see that in this chart here, right? Like, this is exports. I mean imports. This is exports. Either way, Canada is a huge, like, trading country, alliance, whatever we have. Here's all the different so I guess all of this, like, this part of Canada supplies this part of the US, all this, and then this little part. Daily net electricity interchange between the United States and Eastern Canada. Net outflows from the United States. Daily net exports. So on some days we've netted more exports than imports. This is for hydro. Okay, either way. Yeah, Canada does a lot. Hola, Pura Vida. I was in the chat yesterday as a Latin American. Hi, I remember you. I saw you. I also saw you in Wick's chat. A few things I wanted to point out, especially from that guy Gibbs, who was just either facetious, or if he truly believed half of the things he said, he's widely misinformed. He believes what he says. I've talked to Gibbs many times, and, you know, he's not a bad guy. He just has really bad, awful opinions. I don't know, maybe you could conclude that he's a bad guy from those opinions, but I have talked to him a lot. I don't think he's like a bad person, but yeah, some of his opinions are just they're awful. Okay, so let's get into this now that we've seen some of the Trump clip. Stumbling over my words.
Introductions and opening statements.
Tell people who you are and what you think of the topic. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you. And also thank you for the invite. Super grateful to be here and to start off the year to be here. Never take it for granted. But yeah, I'm Corey Campbell. I'm a biochemist. You can find me on Twitch, Corey Campbell 84, Twitter, X, YouTube, Instagram. It's Corey Campbell. And as a Canadian, I'm here to defend
good movie.
Canadian hegemony. Actually, I think the world needs more world leaders willing to do blackface. And I think the United States is taking a step in the right direction in electing a leader that's willing to do orange face. So, you know, already copying Canada to some extent. But no, and on a more serious note, just like just about anything in life, it's never black and white. There have been elements of good of American hegemony, but there have been absolutely, in my mind, elements of bad of American hegemony. And I, just as overall a guiding principle, I think diversity is good. I think when it comes to what you said, a multipolar world, that is what I think is overall good in terms of diversity of viewpoints, both politically, socially, whatever.
You're not wrong.
And I will leave it there for now and cede my time.
Okay, we'll get into it as we go. Admiral Gibbs, what are your thoughts?
For openings, or are we doing
yes. Tell people who you are. Tell people what you think,
right.
and then we'll get into it.
Sure. I'm Admiral Gibbs. You can find me everywhere as Admiral Gibbs. Before we begin, I think we need to once again acknowledge my skills in prediction. I, the Admiral Gibbs, the political prophet, have been talking about returning the U.S. To empire building for many years, and now the time has arrived. Some people ask me, do you ever get tired of being correct all the time? And the answer is no, because it's so satisfying to see all you lefties cope and see every time my predictions come true. Yeah, so as far as we're going, I'm sure we'll get into it. All hail Manifest Destiny 2.0, the Electric Boogaloo. I'm excited for it.
Okay. Get into it, I'm sure. Ghosty, what you...
I just want to say, before I get my opening statement, I had this whole opening statement prepared, and then because my notes didn't transfer and I didn't want to read off my laptop, I just... it was such a failure, but it's okay. But yeah, so again, that's why I'm doing this, because, you know, I feel like I didn't properly be able to articulate my opinions yesterday. So that's why we're going over this again.
What you got?
Hi, Ghosty. The G in Ghosty is spelled with a 6. I'm on YouTube, and I did start a Twitch account, but it's just dedicated to playing chess, so there's that. But as far as the topic goes, I do think as a world leader, with our military, our economy, we do have a responsibility as a great power to use that wisely. And I think we can overstep these boundaries. I think Trump is attempting to do so. But I do think there can be good American hegemony, and we have a responsibility to use that. So, yeah, we'll get into the details in the discussion.
Thank you for being here, and we'll get into it as we go. Non-smoker, how's it going?
Hey everyone, twitch.tv/non_smoker. So, I mean, I'm kind of like pretty consistent across the board being an anti-imperialist. I think imperialism is bad. I think it's bad for the world. I actually think American imperialism is bad for Americans. I think we send our men and women off to die in wars that are totally unnecessary for the profit of like billionaires and big business interests. But, you know, I happen to think Trump's rhetoric regarding Greenland, the Panama Canal, Gulf of Mexico, Canada, all this stuff, I mean, Trump is just kind of saying the quiet part out loud. You know, America has had a tendency towards building and maintaining empires since the end of the Cold War. I would argue it really only achieved a unipolar moment after the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, which began to wane with the rise of China and Obama's pivot to Asia in 2009. I think unipolarity is kind of a myth, you know, in a sense that there may be a moment where one power achieves supremacy over the rest, but ultimately it will be challenged by another power. That's yet another reason why I think empire building and unipolarity is bad for America. It's a vain endeavor.
Okay, we'll get into it. Last but certainly not least, someone else who hasn't been on my show in a while, but we're glad to have you.
I just want to say, like, as the United States of America, you know, we are probably the most powerful country, military-wise and economy-wise. And in that case, like, you know, I don't agree with going to other countries and taking them over and making them become even democratic and stuff like that. But I do think in cases like say Ukraine, I think we have like a responsibility to try to keep world peace as best as we can. And I'm not saying that America historically has done that, because we haven't. You know, we've orchestrated assassinations and fraud elections and we've done a lot of really fucked up shit across the world for our own personal interest in the name of democracy and stuff, which is all a lie. But say, like, in an ideal world, I think it would be a good thing for the strongest nations to come together and try to keep world peace and cooperation, and help where they can, as long as it's not for like no reason, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be like the world police, but if we do have like an interest in certain countries, I think that's fine to try to maybe help out there where is needed. And again, this is kind of like very vague, but like that whole idea to me isn't inherently wrong, but it's just historically how we've gone about these things hasn't really worked out so great most of the time. So especially like in Afghanistan and Iraq, I think a lot of people lost trust in the American government after that whole mess, and even after Vietnam and everything. So now when we see a country like Ukraine being invaded, everybody is like, we don't want to get involved. We don't want to get involved. When really that is probably something we should be more willing to help out than the other two issues. But I mean, our military is very powerful. You know, how it's used is one thing, but the technology alone is pretty incredible. But yeah, I guess success is a different conversation.
We're back. Paula, right. Give us your thoughts.
Yeah, Paula Wright. Sexy isn't sexist on Twitter, X, and Substack, Dysmamics. Yeah, I'm coming from this from a kind of international relations realist perspective. And yeah, we'll just see how it goes.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I guess that's the first question at hand. So again, when it comes to the Panama Canal, is it something that America should be looking to get back? We gave it away about 40 years ago, 4 decades ago, something like that. Is it something that America has one, the interest? Is it within our interest to reacquire the Panama Canal and control over it? And two, is it something that is moral to do? That's, I guess, the first question.
No, it's not.
Well, I want to clarify something, because something could be in your interest, and you should also not pursue it.
Yeah,
Doesn't
do
mean
it,
you
Dan.
pursue it.
Go for it.
I have many interests.
Right? Like that's why we broke it into two
Like,
parts.
yes, it's in America's interest to control all of the world, but is that morally good to do? I would say no. So I think those are like two separate questions. Like, just about anything can be argued in your interest.
I don't even think it's a major interest. It's only like 5% of the world's like trading or are trading. I think we would have larger interests to look at, especially with like trade routes like the South China Sea and everything that's going on in Israel and stuff. I don't think the Panama Canal is, I mean, it might be like a smaller secondary issue, but definitely not taking it over, I don't think is a good idea.
I mean, I absolutely disagree with that. The Panama Canal is massive for trade. It's like one of the biggest trade routes in the world. Really, the Panama Canal is the last feather in the cap of the second worst president in the last 75 years. Biden being the worst, of course. It would be, Jimmy Carter was awful president. Let's just get that out of the way. I think the consensus on him at this point, historically, is that he failed at everything he did, even just breathing. He's a terrible, awful president. And I just, whenever he set this up to give the Panama Canal, how did they repay us? They repaid us by letting one of the biggest gangsters of all time take over the canal and take over the country in Noriega, who we ended up having to go and dig out anyway. So whenever we sit here, is it our best interest? Absolutely. We had, I don't know the exact number, but I know a lot of people died that were Americans that built the canal. We just gave it up and gave it to them for basically $1, and now they're sitting here taxing the shit out of us, and they're laughing all the way to the bank like some oil tycoon. And what are we doing? We're going, oh no, oh, it'd be too.
That's such a dumb argument though, because like, you can argue whether or not it was a good idea for America to just give up the canal in the first place, but you can't like make a bad deal and then ask for like a refund because you made the wrong decision. Like, you don't have a right to just take something back that you gave away willingly. That's not how the world works.
Too mean to go take back the thing that we built for the betterment of all mankind. It'd be too mean to go take over this country. Absolutely not. It's actually in the best interest of America and the best.
And it just pisses me off because these are all fucking election season. These are the same people who are saying we're the isolationists. You know, we don't need any other countries. Fuck all the other countries. We're just gonna keep everything in America. Fuck all the fuck trading. Like, let's just build things here and tariff everybody, which makes no fucking sense either. But like, it just goes to show that anything Daddy Donald Trump says is what they instantly believe. They will contradict themselves from day to day. And also it's contradictory because the right is supposed to be the moral group, right? They're supposed to be like the Christian moralists that are so against degeneracy and all this stuff. But they're actually considering forcibly taking over countries. And when they talk about these things, they act as if like Panama and Greenland are like a singular person, like they're an entity. These are nations with individuals that have lives and families. Like, I don't know if they're just ignoring the fact of how horrible invading countries, especially with war, is, how disruptive it is. And again, it's also ironic because the right is supposed to be like the side of the family and the traditional family, children first, blah 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 blah, but they're fine with just going to war with nations and disrupting all these families and children's lives and everything like that. Not to mention our own soldiers' lives, right? So everything they say is contradictory, and they have like no backbone to stand on. Their words don't mean anything anymore.
Best interest in the world that we take it over, because it's pretty clear to us that all Central American and South American countries aren't stable. So, for many reasons, we should take it over.
I just want to clarify something, Gibbs. How do you want to take it over? Just to make it explicitly clear.
I was going to ask that too.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever. So that includes all.
I mean,
like,
so do you remember? I mean, I'm sure you're not old enough. I'm not old enough either. But like, what happened with Noriega? We rolled in there tomorrow. We'd have the whole country controlled by Friday, and we'd be playing rock music
like Afghanistan.
Outside. Yeah, well, hold on. This is not like Afghanistan. We've already taken over Panama once. We know we can do this. It's a small country. They're not
like Afghanistan.
Hold on, it's a small country, not with a proud fighting history. It's not like there's a ton of caves for these people to hide in. We literally fought a war there already.
I don't know. Let's look up pictures of Panama. I'm pretty sure it's like pretty mountainous, right? Am I wrong? It's like it used to be a part of Colombia, which is like super mountainous. But I guess Panama is surrounded like all by ocean, so maybe it's not. Is it mostly beachy? Can I show the screen? I don't know, maybe it's more islandy. Either way, just because there's not like mountains and caves, that doesn't really mean much. Panama nature. Oh, yeah, look at... You wanna go fight war in this shit? It's like deep forest and jungle. Look how beautiful. Oh, South America is so beautiful. Okay, yeah, I don't know. I think that's a silly comment for Gibbs to make, but whatever. Either way, even logistically, if we could do it, which I mean, honestly, we probably could, but like, we shouldn't. There's just, it's not worth it. It's not worth it because, again, of all the consequences that would happen with among our European allies and all of our allies across the whole world, they would not be okay with that. It would ruin our reputation even further. And it's not the right thing to do. We should be, again, as one of the world's superpowers, if not the world's superpower, we should hold a certain responsibility with that title, with that power. With power comes great responsibility. We should not abuse it. We should hold like a standard. I think that's really important. We're humans, like, and we just look at the world like a playground. Like, I'm gonna bully this country. I'm gonna take over this country. Like, no. I don't know. I think it's really important for people to look at politics morally. but that's just a silly liberal, a silly degenerate liberal saying that.
We beat them so bad that we had rock music playing over in front of the presidential palace in 3 days to drive the guys out. Like, yeah, don't act like it's going to be Afghanistan.
And how long ago was this war?
This is like in the 80s, so pretty recent.
Sure, pretty recent. About 40 years ago. And you think there's...
And you think they're stronger now?
Fuck, it's clogged.
Potentially, yeah.
You actually, you're like, all right.
Just because something happened in the past doesn't mean you can do it today.
You think they're equivalent to Afghanistan? You're out of your mind. Like, these people are gonna roll over and let us take over, like just like they let Noriega take them over.
Yeah, I do want to pass it to politics.
Ghost.
Her hand, being polite. Go ahead.
Oh, it's backwards.
Yeah. I think what Trump is doing is he's signaling to China, basically, because China's got a lot of interest in Panama at the Panama Canal and has been building. Just let me find my notes up here.
I'm ghosty. Get it?
I'll find that in a minute. But China is actually mobilizing in the Panama Canal and in Greenland, which is why Trump is interested in those two countries.
When you say mobilizing, what do you mean? There's been
every time she's asked a question, she has no idea what she's talking about. She just like looks to this paper, so that shows me she's not confident in the knowledge she's repeating to us, which means I'm not confident that what she's saying is even true in the first place. Because when I was looking up the thing with Greenland, everything that came up about Greenland, about Trump wanting to take over Greenland, had nothing to do directly with China. It had to do with the new rare earth minerals that are popping up there and the new trade routes that are going to start appearing because of all the ice melting because of global warming, which Trump fucking denies. So it's kind of funny that he wants Greenland now because of these new things that are going to start appearing there because of the ice melting due to global warming. But yeah, everything looking into Greenland and why Trump would want it started with that. I saw nothing about like China. When I looked into the Panama situation, I did see that Trump wants to take over that because China has, I guess, some influence in the canal routing. I mean, they're like a huge trade country, so I don't know. I don't know their direct influence, but I saw nothing with like China's influence in Greenland. I saw all the minerals and the new trade routes opening up. Trade routes.
Apparently a bipartisan concern in the US about the increasing Chinese influence in Panama, with Chinese companies controlling key ports and infrastructure along the canal.
That's okay. So yes, that's what I saw in Panama, that China was controlling key ports along the canal. But I heard nothing of that sort regarding Greenland.
And if you think about this in a kind of strategic kind of level, this is a pincer movement really from China encroaching on Americans' borders in the sense that the Biden government has been doing with Russia and Ukraine. And I think Trump is just signaling, that he's not going to let that happen, to maintain stability, global stability.
Do you think that's a good way to signal it? To an ally? Do you think, do you think that is an optimal way of signaling to an ally?
An optimal way? I don't know. Well, hang on. China's not an ally.
Panama is an ally.
I talk about Panama, like Greenland. Do you think this is a good way to treat your allies?
I mean, is Panama an ally? Like, it
Yes.
seems like they're just ripping us off. Like, that's what it seems like.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like rob my friends at gunpoint and then tell everybody, hey,
This is what I
that's
this is what I mean. When Trump says something, people just instantly have that thought now. Like, who they're saying that we need to control Greenland also for security, national security reasons. Who, before like 5 days ago when Trump brought this up, was so concerned about the national security of America if we don't annex Greenland? Nobody. But as soon as Trump says it, immediately these people jump onto it, and that's the truth, and that's what it is. They're ripping us off. Show proof of that. Can anybody show proof of that? Or are they literally just repeating what Daddy Trump tells them? That's what's happening.
Is Greenland an ally then? Is Denmark an ally?
What has Greenland done?
What they are.
Greenland's
Well,
done
well,
nothing.
Yeah, one at a time.
There's more
What they
cows
are
than people in
prime
Greenland.
political real estate.
What?
And in the balance of global power, all states need to maintain stability and guard their borders. But the whole reason that Russia's gone to war with Ukraine is because NATO was encroaching on its border. And so Trump is actually, in this sense, just trying to waylay that.
Non-smoker, you've been trying to get in. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, so I mean, two things. One, I think the reason, I know that wasn't necessarily part of the question, but I think the interest in the Panama Canal and Greenland, for Trump anyway, is to offset the potential costs of a trade war with China. Trump seems to think that a trade war with China is the best way to resolve the trade deficit, and that would mean tariffs, which of course would raise the cost of goods for American consumers. So controlling the Panama Canal and Greenland, that would be, for Greenland, a source for rare earth minerals, and then with the Panama Canal, it would reduce the cost of trade there, grease the supply chain for us, so it would offset the cost of the trade war. I think that's the thinking behind this. But moving past that.
Okay, so, and then I chimed in here, and I feel like I didn't explain myself properly, but I had the same idea as him, especially with the Canada thing. I think he wants to take Canada because of all the costs, all the prices that are going to rise with these new tariffs. And hold on, I'm sorry, let me grab my laptop real quick because all my notes are on there. Hold on a second. All right. So let me see my Canada notes. Okay, so all the Canadian imports would be tariffed at 25% or more. These are retaliatory tariffs, as well as a Canadian official warned. I just copied the sentence. I have a thing here. A Canadian official threatened terrorists by shutting down energy flows to the United States, a top Canadian official warned. Trump is pushing for gas, opposing electric. Okay, yeah, so I think this is why Trump has been, because in the same speech, he was talking about how, he's like basically anti-electric. He wants to go back to gas, using gas. So like gas stoves, gas heat. He's like against electric. And I think this all has to do with this tariff from Canada, this retaliatory tariff from Canada, they're putting on energy, and also they're threatening to shutting down energy flows to the United States.
I mean, America quite simply has to decide whether we believe in sovereignty or we don't. You know, we were very quick to condemn Putin's invasion, commit hundreds of billions of dollars to helping the Ukrainians fight, the Russians. We've, condemned Hamas's actions. We've condemned, many different instances of one state hostile actions towards another. How can we, on the one hand, say that and then go in and just simply take aggressively the Panama Canal from Panama just because it would benefit us? A lot of things would benefit us. We could, invade X number of countries for other resources. There's a reason we don't, because we purport to care about sovereignty. So if we decide we don't care about sovereignty, then I don't see how we could continue to fight Putin or any other power.
I would like to add on to that a little bit as well with the trade agreement or the trade wars idea. This is where Canada comes in also, because Canada is one of our largest exports of and our largest imports of natural resources. And with the tariffs, when I said natural resources, I meant to say energy, which is crude oil is a natural resource, right? But also hydropower and electricity. I didn't mean to say natural resources there. I meant to say energy. To add on to them, and they're considering retaliatory tariffs. Greenland has a ton of natural resources and minerals for energy resources, and I think it's funny. And also building technology. This it also opens up large trade routes due to global warming, which is something that Trump has denied for such a long time, and now the reason he's interested in it is because it will open up so many trade routes because of global warming. But I think this is what I'm sorry, I forget your name, the man who just spoke.
Non-smoker.
Okay, non-smoker, yeah. This is to balance out all of basically what I consider the fuck-ups Trump is going to deal with his administration.
I want to reject this idea that we're not playing by the status quo, right? We play by this old Pax Americana for years. We have, what do we call it, neo-colonialism or neo-imperialism, where we set up a government and they were tangentially our friend, and then oh Lord, it fell apart, and because we.
Dan, I know he has a Twitch that he streams on a lot. You could probably reach out to him on Discord or join his Discord and talk to him there and set up a debate for sure. He would 100% be willing to do it, I bet.
Pulled out all the troops, all these things. I mean, if we look at Russia and China with what they've done with Nepal,
or just a discussion, whatever.
Ukraine, it's pretty clear that all that shit's out the window now, and we're back to what was worked for the last 10,000, 30,000 years, which is imperialism. Is they go in and take the shit, right? I don't know why Jimmy Carter had the bright idea back in the day to get Panama Canal, their thing back, but it took us, to answer Corey's question, no, it won't be like Afghanistan. In December 1989, we took over the entirety of Panama in 5 days, and all the people were outside, right? Oh, we're your bitch. That quick. It's not going to be like Afghanistan. They're going to roll over and play dead, and just whatever. If they don't, then they will send it to B-52s. Either way, problem solved, and then we'll still keep the canal. And then guess what? We have trade shipping, and it's good for everybody. Because you know what? What's good for China is not what's good for the rest of the world. American culture is the best culture, and I'm sick of pretending sometimes. Listen, I'm sick of pretending there's some cultures that aren't good or bad. The Aztecs, they were cannibals, and they sacrificed people. It was good when the Spanish took them out. You know what? Same thing here.
So I'm fine with people considering certain cultures superior to others. But this is all, for the most part, a matter of opinion. I mean, there are some measures or I guess there's some different quantities to measure the superiority of a nation. You could look at the economy, you could look at growth, birth rates or whatever, or you could look at economic growth, or I don't know, there's different things like that. But as far as a culture, you could I mean, I feel like most people would be I like my culture, that's why I live the way I do. right? So really it's just like a matter of opinion, and it's fine with being like, I like living my culture than I do a different culture. But again, that's really just a matter of opinion, because somebody living a different culture would rather live their culture than yours. And there's some people obviously who like don't like the culture they live in, but other people do like it. So again, it's a matter of opinion.
Here, the commies over in China, they're bad. Let's take them out.
What happened to the No New Wars president that he ran on his entire campaign? No new wars, and now we just want to take over fucking Greenland, Canada, the Canada.
It won't be a war. It'll be an ass whipping.
He said he will use military.
It just redefines things the way that he wants, whatever's expedient for him. That's it.
These places aren't for sale.
That's what we all do, though.
Nobody wants to sell them. He wants to forcibly take them over.
Who built the Panama Canal?
We helped build it.
No. We didn't help build it. We built it.
We largely contributed to it, but it's
not
Canada's
90%.
now.
Oh, it's Panama's now. So, do you agree that like, say someone cuts you an unfair deal because you have like
my internet died. Everything you just said in the last 30 seconds, no one heard because
It was all slurs anyways.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I apologize. I don't know why it died for a moment, but it did, and here we are. Last I heard, we were arguing over who built the canal. I do want to kind of bring this up. I want to ask about something non-smokers said, the idea of sovereignty. Is that something... When is it okay to violate another country's sovereignty? I guess would be the question. What do we think? Let's give it to Paula first, and then I want to hear everyone's answer.
Okay, so since the Second World War, and especially since the fall of the Soviet Union, America has pursued what's called a liberal progressivism, which is about spreading liberal democracy, American liberal democracy around the world, and it has had the power to do that, and it's done it in very immoral ways. It's actually realism is the opposite of and does value sovereignty, and liberal progressivism has used realist tactics, which are basically just brute power, to spread democracy, right? Which is obviously a paradox. Trump, I think, is taking on a much more kind of realist perspective, which is about, well, it's about
So Yuch, is that how I pronounce that? Said cultural/societal norms are dependent on standard of living. I think that's a part of it for sure. But I mean, we also do just have different cultural norms across society. Like you could take two countries that are pretty similar based on standard of living, like two countries that have a similar standard of living, such as like the UK and the USA, but there are still cultural differences, at least slightly. But you could take another country that has like similar standard of living that has different cultural and societal norms, like I don't know, maybe somewhere in like Eastern Europe, or I don't know, like a country in Asia or something. I don't know, anywhere. You could have similar standard of living and also have varying cultural societal norms, at least to some extent. But I see what you mean.
It's let me just it's about maintaining not a kind of Pax Americana, but basically each independent country's own interests, and promoting self-interest there. And in Europe, which is why he's talking about taking the troops out of Germany and stuff like that, and rebuilding the military infrastructure in Europe, so that they're not kind of passing the buck financially to the states, and then the states can actually put their resources into their own borders, which are, from China's perspective, from the encroaching China perspective are Greenland and, South America and Panama Canal, because that's where China is putting a huge amount of resources in there. So, I mean, I think we need to see past the rhetoric. This is all, these are negotiations. He's not going to go to war unless there's an encroachment, but he's just basically laying out the groundwork and saying, these are our red lines.
He didn't say any of that. He didn't mention any red lines. In fact, he didn't give any details at all. He literally just talked about annexing Greenland and taking over the Panama Canal without giving actual, like, I watched the speech, the Mar-a-Lago speech. He didn't go into detail. He didn't say, he barely touched on why. He barely touched on the benefits, the logistics of it. And then fucking Trump people are just so fast to be like, oh, this is his negotiating skills. Him literally saying, just imagine what Canada and America could be as Canada being the 51st state. What kind of negotiating is that? They're already like proposing retaliatory tariffs and so stupid. They'll defend anything he says.
What do we think of that, gang?
I think it's a bit of a cop-out.
Well, okay, yeah. I'll promise I'll make it quick. I mean, I'm gonna try to weave together this a little bit. Yeah. So look, Wilsonian liberalism, right? Like, basically the idea is that the more liberal democracies there are in the world will be a far more peaceful place. And the line of thinking is that liberal democracies are less aggressive than authoritarian regimes, and so if you remove authoritarian regimes, replace them with liberal democracies, even if you do so through warfare, ultimately it will lead to a more peaceful, harmonious world. It's just been proven to be kind of false. I mean, you look at Iraq, you look at Afghanistan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's interesting, like what Gibbs is saying, I kind of agree with him, that actually I think the default foreign policy stance for the last century in America has really been, let's build a Pax Americana. There needs to be powers in the world. We're the greatest power, and the world under our reign will be much safer and much more harmonious than it would be under the reign of the Soviet Union or China or whatever. And I would say that we've been the preeminent power in the world. I wouldn't call us a unipole. There have been other powers that have, come close to us or attempted to oppose us. But I would say under our reign, there's been tons of violence, chaos, and disorder. And that's just sort of how international relations are. It's a kind of anarchy, right? There's clashing, countries have their own interests, etc.
No, I'm American. I'm from Philly.
So,
the Northeast.
Us taking the Panama Canal, it would sort of on the surface betray that whole line of thinking. America believes in sovereignty. We want to protect every nation's sovereignty. And it would reveal the truth that we don't really give a fuck about sovereignty. We just want to be a much more powerful country, and we think we deserve to rule the world. I would say we don't deserve to rule the fucking world. Nobody deserves to rule the world. Every state should have its own. Every state should have sovereignty. We should seek for a world of cooperation, not violent competition.
Yeah, I mean that has been the situation in America since Roosevelt and since 1989 when the Berlin Wall finished, and it's gotten us basically. I think the atomic clock is 90 seconds to midnight, and we're the closest to kind of nuclear annihilation than we ever have been since they set that up.
No. Since they set the Berlin Wall up, wasn't like the Cuban Missile Crisis like pretty close there? There was some like battle in the sea that almost set off a nuclear war, and it literally came down to one man on the ship. Because 3 men on the ship had to agree to set off the nuke or whatever. And 2 guys said yes, and the third guy said no. So that was pretty fucking close. It was over like a miscommunication or some shit like that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like we're very close to nuclear war right now. That's not how I feel. I know like politicians want everybody to constantly feel that way. They've been doing this since like the atomic bomb was invented, I guess.
And I think from some realism project, regardless of the rhetoric, okay, is resetting that and focusing more on pragmatic and strategic considerations, okay, over these kind of broad ideological moral ones, saying yes, if we spread liberal democracy, it'll be a peaceful world. As you say, it's proven not to be true at all. So looking at this kind of situation much more realistically and understanding that each state, it's fluid, and as you say, the international system is archaic. There's no overarching authority above states, above single states, and each state operates within a system, a self-help system, where its own security is its primary concern.
I do want to jump in here for a little because non-smoker, respectfully, I just frankly disagree with you.
I fucked up Wick's thing here. I shouldn't have interrupted him. Hold on, it's coming up.
Last 50 years of history, it has been more peaceful than any other time in human history, at least recorded history. It has been one of the most stable, right? Showing human flourishing has increased
in America,
across the board, worldwide, globally, right?
It resulted in like the UN. The UN is like a good thing.
Don't.
Okay, so this is how I apparently ruined his thing. So when I said this, I mentioned the UN. Apparently everybody hates the UN. I'm personally, again, like I'm not a super politics person, so I'm not informed on why the UN sucks. But in theory, the idea of the United Nations is like a pretty good idea. It came after World War II, right? Yeah, it came after World War II, I think. Or during the Cold War. Or after World War I. Hold on. This is in my notes too. Hold on. The League of Nations started after World War II. The United Nations, yeah, also started after World War II. Oh, the League of Nations after World War I was rejected by Congress. The United Nations was suggested after World War II, and that was accepted, and it was to prohibit wars of conquest, such as the ones we are considering right now. It says like in the paper, a suppression of acts of aggression or other breaches of peace to achieve international cooperation serves as a forum for which the international community can weigh in on disputes and help resolve them. Americans hope this would help great nations resolve matters through compromise and law rather than war, which, like, I think all of that is good. And doesn't the UN don't they do like investigations on war crimes and everything like that? So I don't know, for some reason the people on the panel don't like the United Nations, but I do think the idea of international cooperation and dealing with matters through like compromise and law rather than war, and prohibiting aggressions and breaches of peace and wars of conquest, like I think all of that is a good thing to have. For some reason, I guess they haven't delivered because people don't like them, but this is another problem too. Like, when there's a good idea, somebody has a good idea, and then people abuse that good idea, people are very quick to just be like, let's get rid of it, rather than working on ways to make it better and work the original way it was meant to. You know, do the job it was supposed to do. We can amend and regulate these things to make them, again, do the thing that they are supposed to do that they are not currently doing. So people are very quick to be like, oh, this law isn't working, let's get rid of it. Or this new public healthcare system isn't working. You know, my healthcare has gone up, blah, 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 blah. Let's get rid of it instead of like amending it and making it better.
Don't hurt my point. Okay.
We agree on that too.
I mean, it's initial like.
But also, if I may finish, right? Like, Trump, I don't consider these pragmatic. For example, he wants to rename the Gulf of Mexico Gulf of America. How is that pragmatic? How is that pragmatic?
Yeah, and this is just fucking retarded. Like, the Gulf of America. First of all, who fucking cares? I don't know. Mexico has its issues, right? But we have a history with Mexico. They are our neighbor. Mexico City has the largest amount of people in, it's the largest populated city in all of North America. It has some beautiful landscapes, beautiful nature. It is a gulf off of Mexico. Like, who cares? It's just so narcissistic, honestly. It's not an issue Americans seem to be worried about or talking about. It's so silly.
I love it. I think you should have done it a long time ago. What has Mexico done? They ain't done shit. I mean, but like, I'll tell you what's pragmatic.
And again, like, Mexico is one of our biggest trade regions.
Ghosty here said, oh, we're only 5% of world trade. Well, I just did a quick Google search, and she's correct. We're only 5% of world trade. But this shows how much Panama is fucking the U.S. Because you know how much U.S. shipping containers go through there? 40%. So
that's not showing how much Panama is fucking the U.S. That just shows that America is, or the U.S. is in line with, like, Panama's trade route. Like, I don't know, it's the access of trade to come to the USA goes through Panama more than other places. That's not like the Panama Canal is fucking us. But again, it's 5% of world trade, right? And we're talking about trade wars with the world. So the Panama Canal really isn't that big of a fish to worry about right now, especially when we have whatever the fuck is going on in the South China Sea and all the shit in Israel and stuff. All of those boats, all of those disputes. I think that's probably a much larger issue than the Panama Canal.
Just giving them money hand over fist left and right, and they're just fucking us no lube, and we're supposed to sit here and act like it's great. No, I'm sorry, I'm not cool with that.
So how are they fucking us? Like,
because they're charging us outrageous prices on something we built.
Show it. I should have asked him. I should have been like, show me what are these outrageous prices that Panama is charging us that they aren't charging other countries. Just because Trump says it's true. Trump hasn't shown. Ah, God.
And for them, if anything, they should be giving us the freeway because we built this for them. Had like thousands of people die to malaria and shit building this over the long period of time it took. And then we had the worst president in the last 75 years, Jimmy Carter, somehow dangle his old ball sack and say, hey, it's a good idea to give them this fucking thing back for like pennies on the...
So I think it's funny too. This argument he's using right now is the exact argument for reparations. Slaves built a large part of this country and they want reparations for it. And now he's talking about, we built the Panama Canal. We gave it away. And so we should just take it back. Obviously two very different situations, but I just think it's interesting. It's like kind of the same argument So, like, I'm just pointing this out to say that I don't think he would ever use the same argument in other aspects, like in other areas, in other situations.
The dollar, and then now they just turned around and said, ha 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 ha, and fucked us. And like, yo, like, it's okay. Like, I love this, like, bleeding heart lefty spiel where y'all go, oh, everybody deserves to be a country. Everybody's equally right. And then, like, y'all don't practice that at home. Y'all speak outrage to anybody that disagrees with your beliefs. And then when we're like, okay, let's do this on a foreign policy scale, y'all suddenly are like, oh, wow, multipolarity, good. It's so good to help these people fuck us more. Like, that's crazy.
Okay.
Well, wait, Gibbs, just to clarify, I don't actually know, maybe you know, but how much money does the United States contribute to maintaining the Panama Canal each year?
I have no idea off the top of my head. I mean, I didn't look that up. But
I can find out while you guys talk, but continue.
I'm pretty sure it's probably close to zero or nothing.
Yeah, probably none.
Sorry.
And so don't you think that Panama actually maintaining it, I'm assuming, I could be wrong, but I'm assuming they economically contribute to maintain the Panama Canal? Isn't that a cost to them?
Well, okay. How much do you think it costs? I just did a quick search. It says 350 million is what it is. What maintenance work costs. And I just
wait, maintenance per year?
Yeah, and you know what it looked like they make per year? They make billions per year.
Can you send me that source?
Yeah, sure. It's
So this kind of sounds like, what this sounds like is like, the Panama Canal seems pretty profitable. So therefore, let's just take it. Even though they pay for maintenance costs, they're profiting off of it. So therefore, let's just make it ours. When this is our mindset, where every country is trying to be profitable. So what's wrong with that? That doesn't mean they're fucking us. I'm fine with negotiations. Like, if you want to negotiate, if you want to be like, hey, we use the canal more than other countries, blah, 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 blah. You're our ally. Maybe we can, I don't know if we do anything for them military-wise, probably not. I don't know, whatever. You can negotiate with money. But threatening them to literally just go in there with the military and take over Panama, that's not a good negotiation tactic, especially when they're already our ally. We have good alliances with this country. So where's this negotiation tactic? What is it? That's not going to make them trust us or want to... Oh, God. Okay.
Just while you're looking for that, Gibbs, I think you'll be horrified to learn that you're actually promoting a progressive perspective there. A liberal progressive perspective.
How do you figure? What do you figure? I mean, I'm not. I
said before, America is the greatest, and liberal democracy is the greatest, and the world should have it. That is basically the FDR kind of progressive model.
Well, sure. If that's how you want to frame it, I mean, sure. I mean, things shift over time. I've been neocon. I've always been an interventionist. I like American intervention. I've been pro-empire building. I think some of our greatest mistakes were giving back Japan, giving back South Korea, leaving Afghanistan. We should just stay there and
He's literally just talking about like a fucking modern day Roman Empire where we just go over and take over all these nations across the world. When Americans right now are complaining that America can't even take care of America. And now we want to just overtake all of these other countries?
Fought it out. Instead, all these times we always go in there, build these places up, let them go, and then what happens? Most of the time it turned out badly, except for Japan, South Korea, which they could be now our states of ours.
We have allies. It makes allies.
Why is that better? Why are allies better than us?
So we have trading, so that we have good
we can't trade between states.
Like if we're not allies with them, it just makes things smoother.
Well, okay, we own Japan basically.
This is why maybe the UN is fucked up. But I do think the initial creation of it is for international cooperation, so that we don't have to fight these things through war. We fight these things through law and shit.
Let me ask you this seriously. All right, so we fought a war. It was World War II. You remember that one, big one, right? We owned Japan, right? Basically, we owned South Korea. Now they've been rebuilt using U.S. taxpayer dollars. Now they're all our besties, our homies, etc., etc. Now, since they're our allies, in theory, they can decide they want to turn around and do what Panama's doing and fuck us if they want to do, like whatever. Why is it better to let them have their own power after we spent blood, sweat, and tears conquering these places and over here rebuilding them to making them nice? Why is it better to suddenly just go, you know what, y'all do what y'all want now?
Because you can't just take over the entire world. That's why. It's stupid to think that. And these are just paranoid, I say this later, but this is just a paranoid speculation. He's talking about things that could happen in the future. What if all of a sudden Japan and South Korea just decide they want to start fucking us? They could do that in the future. What if they change their minds? So let's just take over them. Like, that makes no sense. And in fact, a good way to make them want to fuck us over is threatening taking them over by force with the military. And even economic force. It's backwards. Very backwards thinking. You're directly causing the thing that you're afraid of happening. You're causing it to happen.
Hopefully, y'all look out for our interests too, as opposed to we own y'all now. Now we're all going to trade within the sphere of the United States, and everybody's going to have a little democracy going to say. Like, why is that better?
Because that means an all-out war with all of these nations. It's
already happened in World War II. It already happened in World War II. We already owned them. Like, what do you mean?
America didn't rebuild them out of the goodness of their heart. America rebuilt it.
Right.
That already happened in World War II when we owned them. Yeah, and millions of people fucking died. And economies crashed. None of that was good. Like, is this serious? This is what I'm talking about. Like, I feel like people are just so out of touch with what that actually means by going into another country and invading it and making it yours when they don't want to be. Like, they're not thinking about all the individual families and lives and where... It's just, like, logistically in general, all of this is just so silly. Morally, logistically, reasonably, none of it is, no. Meh.
Places because they are high, retail, places. America spent so much money kind of in Germany, but didn't do that in Poland, didn't do that in the rest of it because Germany is the center, is that very strategic center of Europe that it needed to do that on. Not the...
See, and again, this too, it's like they're saying that it's bad that we only help out countries that help us, like countries that we have an interest in, which I think is fine. Because again, I'm not trying to be like the world police and like go into every country that we think is fucked up that has nothing to do with us and act like we have some kind of, power or moral reason to make them right or better or make them live the way we want to live. But if there is a country that we have an interest in that does benefit us, and so therefore we like work with them, I think that's fine. I don't think that's a bad thing. Just because we, are more inclined to work with other countries that also help us. That's just kind of how that shit works. That's kind of how life works.
The rest of Europe rebuilds places and rebuilds them because this is the balance of power. It needs to have bases there.
Like, we want good relations in the Middle East, not because, like, oh, it's just the kindness of our hearts to help the Middle East. It's because, like, we want their oil. So we want good relations with these countries that benefit us. And, like, it's fine to have... I just think having allies in international cooperation versus an all-out war and literally taking over these countries.
We already own these countries. Like, I get what you're saying, right? Like, going and taking Panama would be us taking over a new country. What is your excuse for saying, like, if, say, Japan tomorrow said, fuck America, we're teaming up with China. We spent the time investing in building there. Now, I know this won't.
Yeah, he's saying, I know this won't happen. That would never happen. So why the fuck are we even talking about it? Because it's kind of like a dumb hypothetical. China and Japan like hate each other.
Won't happen, but let's just hypothetically. They could, because they're their own democratically elected.
They could, because they're their own independent nation. They have their own autonomy. They could decide to fuck us. So therefore, we should just take over the entire world, because we don't know what these nations are going to do in the future. They might give us bad trade agreements. So therefore, we should just go in, invade, and make them America. Make them part of the United States. We don't have to worry about that. That makes no fucking sense. I've said so already like a million times, but that is what he's saying. That's literally his argument right now.
Country, they have their own, like stance on stuff. They have their own issues. Tomorrow, for example, they could. Now I know they won't, but they could say "fuck America." Now, why do you think it's better for them to have that option than for us to go? We fought you. We already beat you.
Why is it good to let other countries have their own options of how they control their own country? We can't let any other country have their own independent decisions. We can't have that. That is insanely radical. You're literally talking about taking over the entire world and making it like a one giant state, like global American state, which doesn't even make fucking sense. We've seen these empires before. They don't work out. It's never happened. It's never going to happen.
We rebuilt you. Now you're our bitch, and all your people can be our citizens, and you can be a state. We can trade with the other states freely. Why is that? Why is what you propose?
Hold on, Admiral
better?
Gibbs. Are you seriously suggesting we make Japan a state?
I think we shouldn't have ever let them go. We should have kept them. We shouldn't let the Philippines go. We shouldn't let Japan go. Any of the other countries in Europe, we wouldn't even need NATO, because guess what? It'd be a whole different world. We rebuilt them all. It was our funding.
Pretending like, okay, right, listen to what he's saying, right? All of these independent nations that don't want to be a part of the United States, we invade them, we take them over, and we force them to become U.S. citizens. And then now they're all just different states within the USA. And we'll have no problems. Because they're all part of the USA, which they didn't even want to be a part of. Even though they're in the same part of the world, they're the same people. That's actually no different. You would just have World State War I. Instead of World War II. You would just have state... How would you word that? Instead of a world war between all different nations, you would just have a world war between different states. There's literally no fucking difference, especially when these people don't want to become a part of your state. How stupid.
I think the view of like the foreign policy establishment post Cold War anyway was that it was
also
better
sorry.
to
I'm sorry.
have-
I'm sorry. I just have to. Like, the idea of Japan teaming up with China is they
sure.
hate each other, right?
Yeah.
They,
Sure, that's
you
what I
do
said,
understand
that's
that,
not
right?
likely.
They
That's
are
not
not
likely.
friends. They
Sure, I
don't.
know that's not
They
likely,
don't.
but they could,
They
like,
don't
hypothetically.
forget what happened in World War II, right?
Yeah,
The rape
I
of
understand
Nanking
that.
is still
Okay,
a
but
big
look.
deal.
But I mean, but Vietnam, for example, Vietnam's our
Right.
enemy.
This is very stupid framing. Here's why. And
No,
it's
I'm not. I'll
just
look it up.
It's just here's what I mean. The reason that we did it.
Are you talking about like all the shit with Louisiana and New Mexico and or whatever? Like, wasn't there like a Mexican war, or is that different? I'm not like super familiar with that time era.
Incorporate all of these territories into like a large scale empire is because I think the American foreign policy establishment kind of realized, hey, it's a lot easier to build like an informal economic network and with exclusive trade relationships than it is to just dominate other countries.
Yeah.
So in other words, like, we do our part to establish liberal democracy in a country like Japan. We help build up their infrastructure. They, use capitalist economic model to produce lots of goods for cheap, and then we're a consumer market for those goods. And that's a much more effective way to have a relationship with the Japanese than to just annex them and force them to be like the 51st state.
Yes.
And I think that that's the reality of the American empire in the 20th and 21st centuries, is that it's an empire that's really this complex economic network rather than formal domination. And I think, you know, even though I have a lot of criticisms of that, ultimately it's a much more peaceful, sustainable model than the old system of like, let's just take as much territory with hostile power or threat of hostile force as possible. You know, if we did that to the Japanese, it actually stands to reason that they might turn on us at some point.
Also, like, where's all this talk of like Americans first? Like, we can't even take care of our own people. Now we want to take on freaking Greenland and Panama and Canada. Like, shouldn't we be focusing on taking care of our own
This is
country?
Americans first. This is Americans first. Like
It
I
just means
said,
the whole world, America.
Hold on. No, well, that would be great. But listen, this is Americans first. Panama's fucking Americans. They're fucking us, right?
How?
Like 40% of the shipping of U.S. shipping goes through Panama. So that number we talked about earlier.
They maintain the canal.
Hold on. To answer your question, Corey.
Yes,
we are paying to maintain it, and then they're getting several billion through 40% of the shipping that goes through is ours. So like, you know, like what I'm saying is, if we go sit here, we go, hey, we're paying for it. They're getting billions of dollars on top of what it needs to maintain, right? Like, you know how we're looking out for America first? We cut all that out. All that money can go back, be saved for American consumers and American producers, like not having to pay what's essentially an unfair tax because we're the ones who use this canal.
How is it unfair? Just because, yes, if they control that territory, it's sovereign to them, like, why should it not be to their economic benefit? Why does it have to, who cares if they're making billions of dollars? Control it.
I love this idea, you know, dude. Like, Russia and China, like I said, have proved that imperialism's back. They're just taking over shit, and they're just using whatever, like, they need as an
What
idea
is
to
China
justify it.
taking over?
I mean, Nepal might have heard of it. Kind of a big deal. Like, you know, Dalai Lama, there's a reason why he's not there. Remember that guy?
Recently?
Okay, fairly recently. I'm saying in geopolitical terms.
China's
like
The Diaoyu Islands are a thing that's
China's
under.
not a slave state. That's fucking insane.
I don't know about China being a slave state. That's not what's. But they've taken over shit. Russia's taken over stuff in Ukraine. They came up with, oh, there used to be ethnic Ukrainians there. They can just come up with any fugazi reason and dress it up and use an excuse. We built the canal. There's our reason. We go over there. We take.
Russia invading Ukraine is not like a good thing that we should be like, well, Russia's doing it, so we should do it too. Like, what? I mean, you can just I don't know. Stupid.
Take it. It's ours. Great. We get the benefit economically. The people get the benefit there from being American citizens. Wonderful. Love it. It's probably much better than living over in the next drug lord back to Canada.
It sounds reactive to me, and in my view, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not even like a liberal like that, but it sounds sort of like we're responding from a position of like weakness and fear. If the logic
power.
is, well, Russia's aggressive and China's aggressive, so we have to be equally aggressive using military.
Why do you want us to
force,
play
you
with
know?
our hand behind our back? You want us to fight these battles with our hands
I
behind our back?
actually
Glad to
look. I mean, I kind of see somewhat of your point. Okay, let me ask you this, Gibbs. Do you support tariffs?
I mean, I support any tool that benefits us, and if you get like tariffs,
So,
improve it.
They're not
it's
tariffs.
kind of, it really, that's not.
I mean,
like-
So not tariffs.
Depends whether or not. It depends how you view things, whether or not you think it benefits us. But what's your position? Do you support tariffs or not?
I support the situation, right? Like, I think that it might not benefit us economically necessarily in some scenarios. However,
So
it might.
America
It
placing
might.
tariffs on China.
But it might be. It might. Yeah, I think that. Like, yeah, China's been taking advantage of the same way Panama's been taking advantage. Just like, but you can use tariffs for other things. Like, he threatened Mexico with tariffs, and now Mexico seems to be acquiescing to what his demands were and saying, okay, we will play the game you want to play. Don't put the tariffs on us. And like, so I think they're a tool in your diplomatic arsenal. And so it depends. Depends if I think it's good for each situation.
Yeah, I ask because, okay, your position is sort of that Panama taxing us for using the canal is, as you say it, fucking us. So I would say, well, in your view, is it justified for America to fuck other countries with tariffs? It sounds like you would say yes.
Yeah,
and then I would argue, well, now you're kind of setting up a climate where the incentive is for all the players to just try to fuck each other, which is
Well, that's what
probably
there's
going
already
to end up
happening.
catastrophic.
No, that's already what's happening. We're the
do-
only ones not playing the game.
Yeah, I do want to run the conversation a bit, right?
I mean, what non-smoker is saying here, though, makes sense. It's like, oh, other people are making too much profit, and we want to make profit. So because you're making more profit than us, oh yeah, I just lost it. It's basically like he's saying that the United States, from and what Gibbs wants, is to punish other nations for doing the same thing that we do. Everyone's trying to make profit. Everyone's trying to do these things. So it's like he's basically saying we're the only ones that are allowed to do that, which is unreasonable. Again, if you want to make negotiations, fair negotiations, that's totally fine. But talking about overtaking a country because they're doing the exact same thing that you do,
get a little more people in here. But I guess the question I have asked to maybe drive this conversation forward a bit, realistically, what do we think the chances of Trump actually doing any of this are, right? If we had to put a number on it, what do we think? We think a 10% chance? We think an 80% chance? What are our thoughts here? Go ahead.
I think probably single-digit percentage. But I agree, it's probably largely rhetoric, but I think that's bad rhetoric. I think the whole talking point of he's establishing red lines is just really stupid. There are ways of establishing red lines without pretty much going after your allies.
Can you give us an example then? If you don't like how Trump is doing it, could you give us an example of how you would do it? Go ahead.
Well, I'm not a politician, so I don't have.
Okay, but how would you like to
negotiate? Negotiate.
I'm pretty sure he can avoid saying annexing Canada or making Canada the 51st state. I'm pretty sure that can be avoided. The same thing with even just him committing, say, yeah, we will not commit to military action, or rather, yeah, we would not go that far. I think that's also.
You can't say that. If you think about it, it's less about aggression, but it most definitely is about power. You cannot, put all your cards on the table and rule out aggression if China. So China is kind of building airports and dual use kind of structures.
China's not allowed to build airports around the world? Literally, these people are acting and sounding like America's just a little crybaby bitch right now. Go build your own fucking airports then. As if we can't? What, we can't do that? Also? Oh no, China's building airports. Wah. So this is, you're not allowed to do that. Just build your own fucking airports. The fuck?
And facilities in Greenland. It's, as I said, it's kind of building infrastructure around the Panama Canal.
It's literally it sounds like a big bully. It's another country thought of an idea before us? That can't happen. That's not allowed to happen. We're just gonna, overtake you now. Or we're gonna punish you. And maybe certain degrees of punishment might be acceptable, but the ones Trump are talking about is really a bit extreme. It
is America first because Trump is trying to secure the border, an American border, in not just on the Mexican line, but in a greater kind of global line. He's trying to kind of shore up those things, and he has to do it with power, and the threat of aggression has to be there as a rhetorical, tool.
But Greenland is an ally, so why wouldn't we just invest in putting plants there ourselves too, if that's the issue?
We can do that as well, but the thing is, there's certain things that China are doing. They're building strategic infrastructure. They're building a Greenlandic airport project, and what the Americans are worried about is this thing called debt trap diplomacy, where all these things that are being built, Greenland is borrowing money from China that it probably can't pay back, and their bargaining tool is, well, you can't pay us back, so then we can bargain with you to kind of have a military presence there. And we have to think. In chess, you have to think about 10 moves ahead of what's actually happening now.
So I guess the question becomes if, right? Because again, rhetoric, forceful rhetoric, and things like, how are we going to get?
Did somebody say
this is something
chess?
we talked about a little bit a few days ago when it comes to getting people to trust you, right? How are they ever going to trust you if this is how you treat the allies? How are we going to have other countries who are incompetent, like China and Russia, are attempting to influence places like India and these other countries, right? That Saudi Arabia, Israel, Lebanon, all these, we're all in this competition for influence. So if we are threatening our allies, why would another country such as India or Thailand or whatever, right, want to throw in their lot with us, knowing that they're just going to get bullied? Why not go for the carrot instead of the stick? Can you elaborate? Can you elaborate on that? You said they're not playing the same game. What do you mean?
No, they are playing the same game. They're all playing the same game. All states are basically
In competition? They're kind of like giant corporations that are in competition with each other? Wow.
It's the key principles of realism is that power is the main currency, and states are seeking to accumulate power to secure their position and deter threats. Okay, so everybody's doing that, and through this kind of interplay of cooperation and competition, there becomes a kind of an equilibrium, and it's not based on airy-fairy kind of ideas of liberal democracy is moral and all this kind of thing, because we've already seen from the US, and the way that they have promoted liberal democracy around the world. It isn't moral, and as I said before, you said the world's been peaceful and standard of living.
Oh, well,
we
no.
are 90
we
seconds.
are in the most peaceful.
We are 90 seconds to midnight.
Sure, but that's due to
atomically.
technology in a lot of cases, because we have now more destructive weapons. So if a world war was to break out today,
Well, sure,
it
the
would be
atomic
far
bomb
more
was
destructive
only
than
began
any
then.
other place, right? But I guess when I say peaceful, I don't mean like that there's all peace all over the world. I mean like compared to before American hegemony, right, existed, before we had the unipolar world, the world was more chaotic. Now,
Is that not down to technology?
that also is down to technology. Yes, that both of these things.
Yeah, I would push back on that whole notion also, that the unipolar world has made everything more safe. I mean, I don't think
comparatively, yes.
Well, the unipolar world meaning what? I mean, like, I would say our unipolar moment was at the collapse of the Soviet Union. Would you go back further than that, or would you just?
I think that's when it coalesced. But I think that the Soviet Union had been kind of toothless even before that for a few years. But that's close enough, right? That's close enough for the discussion purposes. I would say personally that one of the ways that a unipolar world has made the world safer is I'll give trade routes as an example. And I know we had a debate on this with Destiny actually, in regards to Houthis. The fact that America guarantees basically safe passage for transit for trade ships and other things increases nation-to-nation trade, which does promote peace. It does. And I think that the fact that we have a power on Earth that is able to do that unilaterally is, again, a force for stability and force for peace. But I want to push back a little bit on, and I see you guys, the rest of you, and I'm gonna get in here. But Paula, you said something right earlier, that it's about like realistic power, and I agree. But part of that realistic power is if Canada is being threatened by one country, they will turn to those countries' enemies and look to strengthen their relationships with them in order to protect them from the country that is being bellicose against them. So one of the risks with threats and rhetorical threats, is you drive your potential ally into the hands of your enemy. So Canada starts, well, you're not going to make deals with us? You're going to threaten our borders? China, Russia, what are your deals looking like? Do you think you can help us out, right?
They're already doing that, Wick. China and Russia are already floating ships off their water. They're already threatening them. I don't know, like, this is kind of what I think Ms. Wright down here was saying, is that they're already playing one game. We're playing a totally different game, and what we're doing is we're taking their hand, we're handcuffing ourselves behind their back, and then we're trying to go here and say, oh, we respect all this sovereignty, we respect all these things, and none of the other people that are vying for, like, to be equal to the U.S. are doing this, right? Like, India's not doing this. They're over there taking land from Pakistan. China's over there taking land. You know, Russia's taking land. You know, China's even building military bases in disputed ocean, calling it theirs and stuff. And, like, they're fighting the Philippines, like, regularly. Like, all these ideas that, like, oh, you know, I think that it has been safer, per se, for the last 50 years. Like, I think, technically, you're right. However, I don't think that that's necessarily a good thing. All we've done now is let these people load up their arsenals and show that we're not actually willing to go in there and embrace the real imperialism, and we're going to back down and only give these people piecemeal support instead of coming in there and conquer them, because we don't really actually believe in imperialism. We believe in neo-colonialism or neo-imperialism, which is, to non-smokers' point, basically us tucking our dip back and taping it and go, we're the world's preeminent superpower militarily, but we're going to play world police instead of actually using it to benefit Americans. And so we play at a disadvantage at all times.
Sorry, wait, what was your question again?
Okay, so my question to you was, do you not recognize the risk of rhetorical threats to potential allies such as Denmark, in regards to Greenland? If you guys don't know, Denmark and Greenland, you know, their thing, to the Panama Canal and to Canada, that we risk strengthening their relations with our enemies, such as China. Like, if China came out today, if I may finish, just real quick, in response to Trump saying we're going to take Panama Canal whether they like it or not, Panama turns to China and says, can you guarantee that you will promise to kind of guarantee our sovereignty here? And China says, yes, actually we will. And suddenly they have better deals. Suddenly they cut off access. Suddenly, if we go to war with Panama, it's not just war with Panama. Now we're at war with China. I do you not see the risk there? Go ahead.
Yeah, because what do you think we have been doing already? You know, just because Trump is saying these things out loud as, you know, Eliot's rhetoric, doesn't, you know, America has waged war. While it's been kind of like out of one side of its mouth saying that it cares about, you know, country sovereignty, and it cares about women's rights, and it cares about all these things, and then it goes to war with states, you know, even without kind of the permission from the UN. It's more about actions, not words. What they'll do, what politically what they'll do is they'll come and talk to him. It's like when Trump and the, you know, with Canada, immediately Canada comes and talks to him because Trump starts up here and he negotiates down. That's I don't think it's not realistic to say that just because he's saying it out loud, that this hasn't been going on in much more nefarious ways for the last 50 years.
But that's not his question, though. His question is then what stops, I think, countries like Canada and Panama from going to the enemies of the United States and forming alliances with them. At least that's how I understood your question.
Enemies of the United States are not there for, you know, China will say, oh yes, we'll guarantee your sovereignty, but they're not stupid. China won't guarantee them their sovereignty.
Well, clearly we won't either. So then China can use that as leverage. Like, if this is all about a fucking trade war, right? Why would we give up our, like, take away the leverage that we do have to China? I don't know. None of this makes any sense. I don't know why these people are arguing for it. Again, I think it's just because it's a stupid thing that Trump said, and anything Daddy Trump says, they just automatically believe with no evidence, for it, no reason for it. Like, they're literally arguing for a global, singular American state, as if that would dissolve all the world's problems, that would fix all the world disputes. That's fucking retarded. Then we would just have a bunch of different states that have a bunch of different disputes. States that don't even want to be a state in the first place.
Nobody will guarantee. Nobody will guarantee anybody.
I mean, if America is violating their sovereignty violently, maybe the Chinese could at least guarantee that they won't do that.
Yeah, exactly.
China can't guarantee shit in the Western Hemisphere. Let me
Well,
tell you that. If we're not going to go to war with China, if we take over Panama in 5 days like we did in the 90s, like y'all sitting there, you know, I just love this comparison you made earlier with Afghanistan, because we took over Panama in 5 days without the tech we have now.
Okay.
Like, bro, Panama would be our bitch. China wouldn't do shit. It's that simple.
I would agree.
I know you said Western Hemisphere, but can I give you a comparison?
Yeah, please go ahead.
So, like Wick brought up the Houthi debate, which you can find on YouTube, by the way. Me and Destiny and Wick and Alistair the Great. But anyway, yeah. So part of the thinking with the strikes on the Houthis was that, well, you know, the U.S. through violent coercion can guarantee, you know, safe passage through the Red Sea for shipping vessels. The Chinese have actually taken a very different approach on the matter. They're actually helping the Houthis obtain weapons in exchange for safe Red Sea passage. My point being that there can actually be multiple approaches to the same problem by great powers. So there's no reason to assume that if we violently try to infringe on Panama's sovereignty, that the Chinese couldn't offer them some sort of deal or bargain where their sovereignty is
good point.
And thus they'll want to move towards the Chinese orbit and away from the American one.
They're already working with China.
Yeah, they're already,
Isn't that the whole? So they're gonna.
Hold on, that's the
continue that
accusation, but
direction,
whether or not that's
So I was saying that because they're like already willing to work with China, so and they're already willing to work with us as well. So if we give them a reason to not want to work with us, and they're already working with China, and now China has an even more incentive. Now they have leverage. That was my point there. It kind of came off like I was going against his point, but I was trying to agree with him, and then everybody kind of jumped in before I could explain myself. But yeah, I wasn't arguing against him. I'm agreeing with him. Like, they already work with China, and so if our whole goal is like we want them to work with us more than China, why would we threaten them? That only gives China leverage. That only makes them not want to work with us. Because they're already, this is just another fucking whole point, is they're already our ally. There's, like, they're making problems that don't need to exist.
it's true. Like they have the president of Panama. What's his name? I have it here. Hold on one second. You know what? I'm not gonna Fernandez. Okay. No. Hold on. Is it? You know what?
So, like,
Forget
why
his name.
wouldn't
The president of
Greenland-
Panama has denied Chinese influence and interference. He says it's not happening.
Well, of course he is, because we're about to hit him with this big old stick. Like, it's, I mean, I would probably say that too if I was him. Like, I mean, actually, non-smoker actually made a very good point here. But but for my side, and this is, he said, agree. China's gonna go take a different route, do whatever things benefits them, and they're gonna go fund our enemies. These countries are funding our enemies. We got to do something now and stop playing the game like that way. We're like, we think it should be played. Everybody else doesn't have any rules. We're the only ones with rules. And when we go in there, we keep like handicapping ourselves.
China is funding our enemies. Therefore, we should also make these places our enemies. Wait. If they're not... Hold on. Whoa, wait, that was so fucking retarded. Hold on. Once I tried to repeat what he just said, I just realized how much that doesn't make sense. He said China is funding our enemies, but he's actually talking about our allies. So basically, what's actually happening is our allies are profiting off of China. Okay, but they're our allies. So what you want to do now is make them our enemies, even though China is funding them? That doesn't make fucking sense. Wow. How dumb. That is really crazy. We would want... If these places are profitable from China, why would we want to make enemies with them? Especially when they're an ally in the first place and they're profitable to us as well. This is only going to make them less profitable for us.
With like foreign policy
and more profitable for China.
Taking advantage. Just like China giving weapons to the Houthis. Now they have a new client to sell weapons to. Now they can unstabilize trade worldwide. Now they can make America look bad. You're absolutely correct. Great powers have different interests, and America is the best way to ensure that we take over this shit.
Gibbs, you say all these countries are funding your enemies. Are you saying the United States doesn't fund its own enemies? Are you saying it has no economic ties with China? Is China an enemy or not in your eyes?
That's part of why Trump wants to do a trade war with them now, isn't it?
We have the greatest economy. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Corey.
No, I was gonna say. So then you would want the United States to cut off all ties economically with China, like no movies there, no games there.
The problem with that is
no Tesla factories there.
The problem with that is it totally crashes.
Okay.
We do need to withdraw. Hold on.
So you're fun. Hold on. Is that not funding your enemies? Is that not funding your enemies?
It's not either or. Yeah, it is.
Oh, now there's nuance.
Hold on. There is funding your enemies, and that's why Trump wants a trade war with them. Because he says they're fucking. It's like, I mean, you're not going to sit here. You can't sit here on one hand and go, oh, we're funding them, and then Trump say we need to trade more. We need to be more aggressive militarily with these other countries. We need to secure these things, and then you go, oh, but you're funding them. Yeah, of course. And he wants to pull us back from that. Like, so yeah, you're right. And he recognizes that that's what's happening, and he's pulling us away from it. So, point us.
I want to give Corey a chance.
Trump's never said he wants to take away Panama's sovereignty. He just wants to retake the Panama Canal.
But it's not for sale.
Yeah. I don't think that you can have one and not the other.
Yeah.
Well,
no.
we did. Yeah.
I mean, it's like the size of Rhode Island.
The world's a different place now. The world's a very different place.
Yeah,
now.
the world is a completely different place from the fucking early 1800s when our country was just forming. And we were buying land and shit. That was for sale. And yeah, there were some wars and stuff. There was like the Louisiana Purchase or whatever, blah, blah, blah. There was some of that shit. But the world is a completely different place now. We have very, very precise borders today. It's not just willy-nilly, this part, we want this land, blah, blah, blah. Like, we have very in-place borders and lands. It's a completely different time.
We had it before we want it back. And the Panama.
Well, Russia did that.
Okay.
Russia did that with Ukraine. Why can't we do it?
But it's resulted in...
Russia did that with Ukraine. Why can't we do that? These people, man, like, people actually think this shit. That literally sounds like a little kid, like, well, my sister did it, so why can't I do it?
Russia doing that with Ukraine was wrong, was bad, to be clear.
Well, listen, but okay, that's my point. This is all icky, Wick. It's all icky, right? But, like, I'm sorry that it's icky, but, like, if you're actually...
And again, it's just so fucking ironic because this comes from the whole fucking campaign, the same campaign that was running for the entire election season saying, we're the whole no new wars president. We're the isolationist president. And then a couple days before his inauguration, and the true colors come out. Both ideas are fucking stupid.
World power, sometimes you gotta get icky. And, like, in order to look out for your best interests. And, like, we gotta get over this idea that just because something might be, like, morally gray, like...
Yes, war is morally gray. Thank you for that statement. unnecessary war is morally gray. Invading ally countries and taking them over for our own economic benefit and no other reason is morally gray. Uprooting people's lives.
Sometimes we have to do the hard thing. Otherwise, we're going to let these other countries take over.
I am
and then
not
guess what? We're all gonna be
convinced
fucked.
it is in our best interest to annex Panama in order to get back the Panama Canal.
That's the other point. I don't even think it's in our best interest either.
I'm not convinced that will make us more secure. In fact, that will deter.
That would ruin all of our ally relations. Like, people don't realize, like, yeah, we have, like, a really great military, obviously, like, better than everybody else. But Europe, geographically, is a really, like, strategic location for us. Like, it's important to have allies with these other nations across the world. It's also just good. It's economically beneficial. It keeps the world a safer place. And if we just overtook Greenland, which is a part of Denmark, they are run autonomously. They have an autonomous government separate of Denmark, but they are Danish people. They're a NATO country. If we just invaded them, that would ruin all of our European alliances. Like, Germany would not be happy with that. The UK would not be happy with that. France is not going to be happy with that. Nobody's going to be happy with that. That's going to ruin all of our trust. I don't know. I just think, again, like, as such a powerful nation, economically, militarily, whatever, in the military, we have a certain responsibility. And I think it's good to hold moral, standards. Of course, profit and benefit and all this stuff is important, but I think also just morally we have a responsibility and a standard to maintain as the world's superpower for peace and profit and happiness and love. Okay? Like, all that good stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not joking, though. The side of the right, again, is supposed to be the side of, like, Christianity and morals and anti-degeneracy, and they care about babies and families. But at the same time, they make arguments like this. Invading allies and, imperialism. So it's a little ironic to not hold those same moral standards for an entire nation. What's up?
Countries from ever making any deals with us. Why would they, when they know 10, 20 years down the line, some other president's going to get elected and say that deal was shit, we're going to take it back by force. Why would they ever work with us again? Obeying the law, right? Obeying
but they have friends that do
upholding
it.
an international order has a large benefit to our country.
Hold on.
That's the other thing, too. Like, Russia in this war right now is so fucked. Their economy crashed. Not to mention the fucking how many people that are dead and dying in frozen trenches and shit, like, suffering and but yeah, just their whole state, even besides, like, the loss of life, their entire state is, like, failing right now. I don't think they're benefiting from this war at all. I'm pretty sure their economy is, like, doing pretty bad. Most of the world has, like, sanctions on them. I think India in the beginning was still buying their oil from them, but a bunch of people stopped buying a bunch of things from Russia or adding sanctions or whatever. Like, this isn't beneficial to just start these unjustified wars. In fact, we're usually the country that comes in like 5 years late and says, we're ending this right now. That literally happened twice. So, yeah, I don't know. It's like MAGA wants to be Russia. That's the vibe I get.
So Wick, so
Actually,
how come all these countries do business with Russia and China? Like,
No.
what they're doing is so terrible, reprehensible. All these other countries are doing business with them. India's doing business with both of them. They're like the next giant market. So like everything you said is unequivocally not true because countries are already doing business with these other countries that you're saying, oh, is doing the wrong thing. So
You
like,
don't think Russia's faced massive consequences from this?
I mean,
I also think
short
part
term
of
maybe.
China. I think part
In
of
the
China-
short term, maybe. You don't think Russia has faced massive consequences from this? I mean, in the short term, maybe.
in places like Africa especially, is that they don't try to export their political system and they don't use violent coercion. They go in there and they economically develop these countries, they build up infrastructure, etc. That's what makes Chinese investment so appealing. As opposed to the American system of exporting our ideology through NGOs or even through violent coercion at times. I think us, in the instances where we have intervened violently, i.e. Iraq, Afghanistan, it's actually done a lot to hurt our image internationally and caused, I think, some countries to feel less comfortable doing business with us. At the end of the day, though, they kind of have to because we're the world's preeminent economic power, in addition to being the world's preeminent military power. But I guess my point is, we've sort of given China some leverage here. If your view is America first and you want us as the unipolar, hegemon, why would you do things that will build up China's legitimacy and hurt ours?
Yep, exactly. Good point, non-smoker.
I disagree with all of
This is
I
one of the few instances I will say non-smokers just correct.
Yep.
No, you're not correct. If you look at Africa, they started off with the carrot, and now they have the stick. There's like evidence of Chinese racism, military bases being built, and they're throwing these people out in droves. I mean, I can leak, like if you go just look up Chinese racism with Africa, you can look and see where they threw out thousands of people onto the street that had already paid their rents, and like didn't build military bases nearby. Like this is all sorts of this running rampant. So like y'all are acting like China's just everybody's best friend. Like
I'm not saying that they
China's
aren't.
being aggressor all the
No,
time.
I'm
We're
not
the only
saying
ones
that
pretending that we like.
I'm not saying that there aren't instances of racism and that there.
Yeah, he's not saying that. He's saying that, okay, you have a trade war, right, between the United States and China. One of these countries is threatening economic and military or aggressive physical coercion. The other country isn't. Which one are you more willing to trust and work with?
Isn't a degree of exploitation, of course. Why would the Chinese be interested in investing in Africa if they didn't stand to gain something from it?
Wait,
When
so
I'm
you're lauding them for doing this and being correct
No, I'm
and
not
successful,
lauding them.
but then you're
I'm
saying
not
that,
lauding.
like
No,
it's
I'm
bad
not
that we
lauding
do
them.
it?
You're not understanding my point. I'm
Well, I
not lauding.
understand.
What I'm saying is that we've given China leverage in Africa as a result of us being too quick to the trigger in other places in the world. And now there are parts of the
Yes.
world that are developing economies that would rather do business with China than us.
That and to be clear for the people coming after me in my chat, that's what I mean when I say he's correct. I don't mean about his other takes. That take right there at the end. But I do want to make some money, so let me read some super chats, gang. And thank you for the super chats. Thank you for contributing to the show. It's how we keep the lights on, gang. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button. Give me more money. It's always helpful. Let me get through these real quick, and then we'll continue our discussion. $5 for Zephyr Hash. At least all that money. Will
Guys,
stay
like my
North
little ghost, by the
American,
way, my
languishing
boyfriend
in
gave
Ukraine,
me.
being used for sickening purposes like protecting the innocent. Thank you for the $5. $2 Canadian dollars from Testicle
How
Johnson.
cute.
Hands off my maple syrup meal team 6. Thank you for the $2.
That's base.
$5 more dollars from
For
Zephyr
Christmas,
Hash.
it was a
I
Christmas
like our
gift.
peaceful ways so much that the whole world must learn our peaceful ways by force. $5 from another new account. It hasn't been perfect, but consider the countries that exist today because of American intervention. South Korea, Taiwan, Kuwait, etc. Thank you for the $5. 5 more Canadian dollars from Testicle Johnson. How expensive to maintain other states? How long before boots on the ground? How long before an occupying force? And then finally, $2 from Zephyr Hash. Instead of paying 40%, Gibbs wants to pay 100%. Shrugging person emoji. Thank you. Um, but yeah, like this idea of, and this is something I just believe across the board. When you play by the rules, people are more likely to engage with you, right? They're more likely to trust you. They're more likely to
Everything I just said.
participate in exchanges with you, trades, deals, etc. When you start breaking those rules, especially your own rules,
Yep.
as unfortunately
So
I
true.
think America is doing with its threats towards Panama, towards Greenland, and towards Canada, yeah, it makes people not want to work with you anymore because why? How can they trust you?
Yep.
And that is a big part of the
Supposition,
game.
yeah.
Right? Go ahead. What?
That's a supposition, I guess. Yeah. So we'll just have to see.
Yes,
how it
that
plays
is.
out.
We'll
that is
just
my-
have to
that is my
see.
hypothesis, if you will, right? Like, I think that. Yeah.
So fucking
The
stupid.
reason I think Trump is talking, that the Panama Canal is a rip-off is because when there was a precondition for the handover in 1999 that they wouldn't levy a charge unnatural, what they call charges on the U.S. And
Wait, so this is something from 25 years ago? So why didn't Trump care about it his first term? If this is the reason, because something went wrong in 1999, then no.
that he looks at that as violating the strategic neutrality of the Panama Canal. That was a precondition for the handover.
I think it's so fucking funny that the campaign, the no war campaign, are the people who are in support of forcibly taking over these places, basically imperialism, but you don't support Russia invading Ukraine, or like us supporting Ukraine after being invaded by Russia. I just think this is so ironic.
Well, it's pretty simple. I got an easy answer. to that.
Just one time. Let's let Paula go first. And
Yeah, they support this, but they don't support Ukraine. I don't know. I just think it's ironic all of this talk coming from the same campaign of, don't send money to Ukraine, fuck Ukraine, blah, 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 blah. You know what? Now thinking about it, maybe it's not that ironic. Maybe it actually makes sense. The people who don't want to support Ukraine are fine with countries going in and invading other countries. That's actually probably makes more sense. It's actually not ironic because they think invading countries is cool. So they're fine with Russia doing it. They're fine with us doing it.
It's not like Ukraine was a unified country. There were Russian speakers in Ukraine.
Bitch! What? It's not like Ukraine was a unified country. There are Russian speakers in Ukraine. What? I know what she's about to say. I think I remember. She says, like, basically, all the territories that Russia has taken over are Russian speakers. So, who cares? First of all, they were, like, forced to speak Russian. In that part of Ukraine. Like, this is, like, all historical shit. Second of all, they were Ukrainians. They were Ukrainian citizens. There was a hard border there. Like, that's so fucking dumb.
That were being suppressed.
First of all, it's not like Ukraine was a unified country. Poor Ukraine. I watched part of Zelensky's interview with Lex Friedman. And it really pissed me off. I was also going to talk about that too a little bit, but I don't feel like doing it tonight. But yeah, this idea that, like, I don't know. I'm not even going to get into it. Whatever. Just I support Ukraine. Okay, fuck Russia. I support Ukraine.
And as I say, there was a red line about NATO not going up to Russia's borders, and the progressive Biden administration completely violated that. And so, what basically the territory that basically Putin has now are basically those Russian-speaking areas.
Well, I'm trying not to get into Ukraine debate. I disagree,
Yeah,
but we
she's
will
right.
have that
Sure.
debate another day. This is about Panama, Greenland, and
Yeah, I was just pointing out it's ironic that the
It's
same
not
people who
ironic.
support this
but
don't
Gibbs.
support.
Yeah, Gibbs. Go
Well,
ahead.
yeah, I can explain this really easy. One, I'm not a bad guy. Those people want to play this bad guy. I broke with him on. I thought we should support Ukraine. You know, I've always been whatever best for Papa. That's always been my motto right here. And so, what's interesting to me is when I go and look and I see, hey, we have trade with Ukraine, 1.43.
I guess where I saw the irony originally is like if you see America as this big bad country that's like, you know, supposed to invade nations and whatever, I just feel like you would support Europe against Russia, against our enemies. You know, like it seems like they're so pro-war all of a sudden. It took like 10 days for them to totally switch around and be like the pro-war party, but I guess that's where I was a little confused. But now that I'm like really thinking about it, actually, no, it makes sense. It makes sense that they're totally fine with these like conquest invasions.
Million last year. Then we have trade with a country like, I don't know, our own billion. We have in a trade with our own hemisphere. We have a country like Haiti, which we have 1.5 billion in trade, which is actually more than Ukraine in 2022. So both those 22 numbers. I don't know what they're currently. I'm sure it's changed since we get a bunch of military tech. I go, oh, everything we're saying is bullshit. We're saying that we're protecting Ukraine because we care about these Americans. No, we're protecting Ukraine because we know Russia's adversarial power. That's the only reason why we're there. If we actually cared about what happened to people, then we'd go and fucking invade Haiti and stop the people from getting eaten alive by gangs in the middle of their capital. I don't know. That might sound like allegedly. That's, you know, what I've seen reports. My point is, if we go in there, we stop barbecue from barbecuing people, then we can sit here and claim that we're this moralist, like great guys.
But that's the whole. I tried to explain this earlier. Like, I don't care that the United States only wants to help countries that also benefit them, like countries that we have an interest in. I don't want to be like the entire world police. But if there is a country that we have an interest in that can benefit us, I don't have a problem with helping them. I don't think that's like super wrong to be like, well, you only help countries that you have a special interest in, and you know, you won't go and help Haitians or whatever this guy's talking about. Like, I don't think that's super terrible. I don't know. I just feel like that's kind of how politics works in general. You know, it's sad, whatever. But again, like, I don't know. Do all these places even want us there? Like, probably not. Maybe some do.
Great American police, but instead we don't invade Haiti to stop these terrorists and like cannibals. We go in.
Well, that is why most of the world trusts the U.S. over Russia.
Well, okay, I don't know if that's trust.
Because we
That means
behave
we're
better
liars.
than Russia. Because
No,
I
it
want to
means
make this
we're
clear,
liars,
gang.
Wick. It's
And
not-
hold on, stop. Because I want to make this clear. Like, the reason that a lot of Ukraine speaks Russian is because they were made to. They were
Yes.
forced to. They were Russified, right? The reason that a lot of these other countries in the USSR, Soviet bloc, speak Russian is because they had to.
Yeah, are we gonna invade Greenland and be like, you better speak English now, bitch? No more Danish.
Right? Their
No,
culture
but
was
the only
erased
reason
Wow.
the US
by
is involved-
force under
Hold on, the only-
imperialistic rule. But
That's
Ah.
a little
The only reason why we're there, Wick, though, is because it's America's interest to not let Russia become a preeminent power again, right? That's why we're in Ukraine. And if we were actually caring,
If we quote unquote kept Japan, like this guy said, and South Korea, would we force them to speak English too? It's really radical. And people are just like nonchalant about it. That's just like the part that kind of bothers me the most, I think. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, whatever. World War, cool.
about human rights and human lives, we would invade Haiti.
And again, like, this is very unlikely to happen. I'm not actually worried about this happening, but what bothers me is the mindsets that people have, that they're like so okay with this shit.
So like I'm sick of this idea that we're not an imperialistic power and we're doing this neo-imperialism or this new pact Americana. We need to just do what all the other countries have been doing the whole time, and we've been playing by a different set.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just looked this up. The official language of Greenland is not Danish. It's also Danish, but it is also Greenlandic. I did not know that. Before June 2009, Greenlandic shared its status as the official language in Greenland with Danish. Since then, Greenlandic has become the sole official language. Very interesting. I did not know Greenlandic was a language.
Because it clearly doesn't fucking matter. Because all these other countries are doing the same thing you're saying we're afraid of. China's over here threatening you, Canada. China's over here taking land, and countries all over the world do business with China. You know, countries all over the world do business with Russia.
Like the United States.
So this idea that we're going to just sit here and be the good guys, that's the only way for these countries to work with us, is if they trust us. You know what they trust us to be, Wick? They trust us to be a bunch of baby back bitches that won't use their military power to get what they want. What we need to do is let them know what the fuck is up and give them the hands every once in a while.
You don't think that...
None of them will trade with us.
They would trade with us. Will they trade with China and Russia? Why do they keep trading with them? You don't have an answer for that, because the answer is they're going to do it to make they're going to do what's better and best for them, despite these countries being enemies and trying to gain power. Like, if these other countries can trade with China and Russia, they'll trade with us.
I don't know if all the countries are doing as much trading with Russia since the war. I'm pretty sure they're not.
Not being imperialistic.
I mean, alliances in general are just good, but yeah, go ahead.
Like we also have trade with many of these other countries, right? We also have relations with many of these other countries. One of the things that people like non-smoker would rail against is the amount of influence we have and exert forcefully in a lot of these other countries. I'm not against using military force on occasion. I'm not against using soft power on occasion, right? I'm not against an expanding American influence on occasion, right? I think we can do that. I think it's fine. I think it's morally good in many cases. What I am against is doing things that's going to make us weaker abroad. And I think that what Trump is trying to do, specifically with his threats against with his threats against Panama, with his overtures with Denmark and Greenland, and with Canada of all people, right? First of all, I don't want Canadians, okay? I don't want them to be part of the United States. I don't want that.
Self-interest.
Yeah,
It's
I don't.
self-interest.
I don't want them here. Sorry, Corey. I love you as a person,
I take
right?
no
But
offense. I don't want
you
to be part of the United
American.
States. I don't want American culture.
Okay.
Even though there's like 80% or 90% overlap, like there's aspects of Canadian culture that I want. And
Keep America great. Keep Canada out. That's what I say.
I don't want your obesity levels.
They're
Keep
two
that to
different
yourself.
systems too. It's not even. I feel like Canada is a little bit more socialized than America is, like with healthcare and school and stuff. So I don't even think we would integrate that easily.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Some parts of Canadian culture are pretty reprehensible, like their history of war crimes and their fast track to suicide bonds. I love it. I mean, you know what? They
Their
don't even
history
need
of war crimes, so we probably
even,
don't want to go to war with them, right?
They don't even need to have lethal injection there, because they just talk to people into killing themselves. It's really impressive.
I also
Right,
just
I
want to
don't
point
know
out.
those kids.
I just real quick, I also just want to point out when Gibbs is talking about like other people trading with China and stuff, America is the strongest economy in the world right now. So we can lose that by hurting our alliances and allies.
But
Like
we
we
can
have
also
places
lose
to
it
go
by
down.
doing nothing. We can also lose that by.
Yeah, so what I was saying there, just to expand on that a little bit. America does have the greatest economy in the world. After the pandemic, we bounced back the fastest. We bounced back the hardest. Okay, we have the best economy. The American dollar is like the money. Okay, so we have places to go down. Sure, we can improve. Of course, we can always improve. We can try to improve, but we do have room to. We can lose this spot. We can lose the spot of being the best economy in the world. And I think one of the ways to doing that is making these kind of threats to our allies. Especially if the reason that you want to acquire Greenland is because of all these new trade routes that are opening up and all these rare earth minerals that are coming out of the melting ice. We probably don't want to threaten them we probably want to like keep them as an ally. And so if you want to keep the greatest economy in the world, why would you kind of like ruin that? If we, I feel like we've probably attained this by being a peaceful, trusting, powerful nation. So I don't know. And then Gibbs is going to be like, yeah, but, you know, what if our allies just don't want to be our allies in the future for no reason? As if, like, it's like you have this paranoid speculation that our allies are randomly going to not want to be allies with us. So what you do is you threaten them to make them not our allies now, because you're scared of it happening in the future. Again, this is why I said earlier, you're directly causing the exact thing that you're afraid of happening to happen.
Doing nothing, which is what we're currently doing. We keep bending
But we
over
have
and
it right now. We still have the strongest economy
okay,
right now.
all right. Here's the thing, though. China, and just much like India, are set to become the biggest economies soon. They have billions of people, right? Like,
They've been saying that for fucking 20 years.
it's coming. Yeah, cool. I get that. This is why I brought up like Nepal. They're like, oh, recent. Like I look at like it as this large stretch of time. You can't look at it and go, oh, 50 years. That's too far back. Like honestly, we should be looking at things like 100-year segments because we don't really see the fallout, you know, for whatever. So sure, it might not happen in 20 years. It might not even happen in another 20 years. But you know, by the time I have kids or grandkids, you know what? China and India might be the preeminent power economically, because we didn't do anything now. Like,
Or
I
they
want
might
a future
become it
for America.
they might become it because we do the stuff that Trump is talking about.
We know
Right. Or they might end up becoming the primary economic power in the world faster because of these paranoid delusions. And by doing the things that Trump is talking about, we could ruin our spot as #1 economic power in the world. Why don't we just keep on doing what we're doing and negotiate a little bit? If you have some issues, negotiate. But being like, well, Russia did it, so why can't we? Like, no. That's not gonna... I don't know. I feel like this is just really basic. I don't know how to explain it any easier. We ruin all of our trade alliances and all of our allies and everything like that, and then we go down.
You realize why Trump got elected, right? The reason why Trump got elected is because
people were lied to?
No, because people want change. They're
People
sick of the status quo. And if the status quo continues, then we're going to not be the preeminent economic power. China or India is. So guess what? He's taking a stance against that, and we're going to get some sort of change. Whether it works or not is to be seen.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different things going on here. I would say that China becoming the preeminent world economic power probably has, or the fact that they're growing so rapidly and they may outpace us has more to do with the fact that they actually make things.
I have no idea what you're referring to, huge.
And the same is true with India, by the way. But, which is a major problem, and it doesn't seem to be one that anybody here has like a realistic, not you guys, but I mean anybody in our country has like a realistic solution for. But putting that aside for a second, I kind of want to go back to the Russia comparison. You know, look, I think everybody assumes I'm Mr. Putin or something, like that I love Russia. It's really not like that. I just accept the reality of that whole thing. But I will say that Putin's decision clearly came as a, you know, what I would, it was indicative of like a intense insecurity on his part in terms of the preeminence of Russia. And I think us taking aggressive military action to secure the Panama Canal would be an equally, you know, an equal demonstration of our own insecurity as an economic power, military power. We would be responding out of desperation and fear of the rise of China and doing something which we've pretty much tried to speak out against for the last, you know, 5 years in terms of what our opponents are doing. It's totally hypocritical, and it would totally force, you know, the rest of the countries of the world, I think, to look at us differently. I think that's kind of undeniable. But I also think, you know, when I talked about the reasons for doing this, i.e. Trump is trying to have a counterbalance for his really stupid fucking, you know, trade war idea, I would argue, well, we don't really need to do this. When America was at its economic peak, we didn't have to control the Panama Canal to reach that. right? The only reason we're even having this discussion is because Trump wants to have a trade war with China to correct the trade imbalance. And I think we might be better suited addressing the trade imbalance through other means, like, I don't know, building up manufacturing here, which is something that MAGA was supposed to be about. They've totally abandoned that. Instead, they want to do this ultra-competitive trade war shit and then, you know, balance off the costs with stealing territory from sovereign countries. Sounds really stupid.
Let's talk Greenland for a minute. We've talked a lot about Panama. So Greenland does have, it has the potential to have, if you will, a lot of rare earth minerals that are going to be important in tech advances and manufacturing coming up. If not Trump's plan, how should America go about securing a portion of those minerals? What are some alternatives to gaining access to some of these minerals? What do we guys think? Let's hear it.
Well, if they're allies, why not just like negotiate?
Buy them?
Yeah. Or like, isn't that what you do with allies instead of like, yeah, using force?
Why? Yes. Why not? Why can't we just buy it? Why would that be wrong to do? To those who support annexing Greenland or whatever, right? Why not just pay for the minerals? Why not? We got a lot of money.
That's how we expect other people to buy our stuff, right?
Well,
We sell it.
You buy Canadian energy, a lot of it.
We can. I mean, okay. Let's just look at the basics here. Every time throughout history, there have been times when a certain.
What, are there aliens there or something?
And whoever controlled that resource, they became the dominant power. Greenland's one of these places where they have
Greenlandic speaking aliens?
Computers, all sorts of stuff. Like, this is like an area. This is something that need to be controlled. Now, you mentioned, why don't we let our allies just become our ally, or Denmark is our ally? Why don't we just negotiate? The problem is, people don't always stay allies. You know, and sometimes your allies are actually not really your ally. Like Turkey, for example, has pretended to be our ally for a while, and then works every other opportunity against us, right? So, just because someone's your ally now doesn't mean they're going to stay your ally in perpetuity. It's much easier whenever there's like an area that has more cows than people to go in there, annex it, and guarantee that we have access to supplies in perpetuity. Then we don't have to worry about if our ally ever turns on us. We don't have to worry about getting unfair trade deals. We can just say it's ours, and we can make sure it's best for every American, best for American production.
We can just say it's ours. Easy, right? Just make it ours. Just make it another state. Easy.
This will help production here in America. I know, I actually agree, non-smoker. We need to build more production here in America. Manufacturing not being here is a major problem. This will help that. And we can build manufacturing there. We can populate it more. It's fantastic.
They're an independent nation.
No, they're not. They're part of Denmark. But
yeah, okay, they're part of Denmark.
That's what you mean is independent, not the United States.
They're independent. They're not for sale. Like, you actually believe just going in and taking over any part of the world that we want?
Everybody else is doing it. Why not us? I mean, like, what if Russia decides tomorrow they're going to conquer? Like, okay, they're done with Ukraine. They want to
literally a bunch of fucking children.
And they go and take over Greenland. Are we going to just sit
I
there
want
and
it.
go, oh, no,
I'm taking it.
No,
that's exactly what we're
taking obligations if China.
What if all the countries gather together and they're like, let's just take America? Like, this is something we're going to be cool with, and make it like a regular thing.
Okay, I want to give it to Paula. Go ahead.
China is maneuvering right now to take Greenland, and you know, the U.S. is wary of any potential increase in China's military presences near its borders, which is why this is happening. I think the mineral thing is secondary to that.
I never heard
that we're worried about China. Explain this to me. Why? What do you think China's doing in Greenland that's going to threaten our borders?
Okay, so I was looking at this document today.
She doesn't know. She doesn't fucking know anything.
It's called, the U.S. is closely watching Chinese motives in the Arctic and is scaling up its military activities. Okay, so let's get the notes that I have for that.
Because I understand they're building infrastructure like to buy minerals.
You know, because at the minute China is using its economic investments to gain long-term political leverage in the Arctic region, which could eventually translate into military influence. I've already said that they're building this thing, the airport that they're building now for a Chinese company, and I mentioned debt trap diplomacy. It traps Greenland into debt, and basically then negotiates. Well, we'll put our military bases. You don't pay us back. We'll put our military bases there.
Did I miss
And
a
then-
raid? Hold on. It's a wild day that my Twitch chat has more people than my YouTube. Did someone raid me and I miss it? I'm sorry.
I think it's so funny. Like, she was the one earlier who was like, well, it's a supposition. It's just a guess. We don't know how the world will react. We don't know how our European alliances will react. But all of this is based on a paranoid guess. Their paranoid guess. Which is much more unfounded than ours. Assuming that our European alliances would not trust us or want to trade with us or work with us if we started invading our other alliances.
Okay,
So
whatever.
the Chinese
How-
company called the China Communications Construction Company, okay, is in Greenland, building dual civilian and military complexes, or certainly complexes that could be put to dual civilian and military reasons, and this is why
Yeah, I
there's so
understand.
much
Yeah.
interest in America by America in Greenland. If China captured those resources, then that's the secondary kind of level of
Okay.
this.
But China
Go ahead.
accounts for a little less than half of the world's like exports in rare earth elements. They don't need Greenland. They don't need them. There's
And
really
they're
no
in Panama.
major benefit. I'm not saying that China would not want access to those minerals either, but I'm saying like it's not a race for Greenland, right? There's
Yeah.
a reason that this is a recent discussion. And it was a discussion in the first Trump presidency, if everyone remembers, and it's a discussion
Yep.
now. It's because Trump's main foreign policy stance is to have a trade war, and I know I sound like a broken record here, but is through a trade war with China to negotiate a, quote, better deal for America. And that actually failed in the first term as well. The
Yep.
thinking here is very simple. If there's a trade war with China, it
This
becomes
guy's
far
has been
more
pretty
expensive
spot
to
on this
import
whole
rare earth
panel.
elements with which America needs to produce EV batteries, right? If we can take or annex Greenland or purchase it or whatever, we can drill rare earth elements from Greenland, thus reducing the impact that the trade war will have on the cost of electric EV batteries and vehicles. That's the thinking on it. That's really the only reason we're having this discussion. And if we weren't talking about having a trade war with China, it wouldn't be on the fucking table.
That's not true. That's absolutely unequivocally not true. We've been trying to buy Greenland or take it over in one way or another since 1867 with President Johnson.
But it
He was
hasn't
the-
been
he's
consistent
been-
talks.
What?
It's
It's
been
been on the
consistent
table
talks
a few
every
times.
20 years it comes up. Like we come in here, we talk about it, and listen, it's not just the minerals. It's strategic reserves controlling the Arctic Circle, right? There's tons of fucking oil in the Arctic. There's the rare earth minerals in Greenland. Not only that, we have bases there. Like, if Greenland happened to go like one way or the other, they could kick us out of these bases. It's considered essential to NORAD strategic.
Okay, wait, so he just fucking said it himself. If something goes wrong with Greenland, we have these essential bases there. They can kick us out. So, don't you think, like, threatening them would push them further to kicking us out than being their fucking ally? Why is this so hard to grasp? There's nothing... It's not in our best interest to be threatening these allies that do benefit us. We have truly, I think it is, like, space base there. What he was just talking about, the drilling and whatever, like, all of these things that he's talking about right now, he's worried about Greenland kicking us out. So, we're there right now. We're already there. So why would you threaten them? To make them want... They have no reason to want to kick us out until now.
Man, there's a reason why since 1947 we've had 1941 we've had a consistent military presence there. Yeah, I don't know if China's plans on taking it tomorrow, and like y'all are all arguing this like, oh, we're the power today, but it's like if we don't ever plan for tomorrow,
Shit.
then eventually, they might just try to take that over and deny us those minerals, even if they don't need them, just to fuck us. There's so many scenarios.
Just to fuck us? Yeah.
Because China
Thank you.
hates us,
Me in the
they're
past.
adversarial power. You do
Why
understand-
would Greenland? But if we have we have like truly something, and we have like space bases there, and we we protect Denmark, like they're part of NATO. Like if we can negotiate with them, why would they like start picking China over?
Do you have are you in agreement on every issue in your own friend group in real life?
No.
Okay, cool. So same thing here. They might be our friends, they might be our allies, but they can disagree with us on a whole bunch of stuff. Something we may even find out that we need is necessary for our national security or sovereignty going forward. Might not be today, might not be 20 years from now. Who knows? But
This is
it's
just
pretty
paranoid
clear.
speculation,
No, it's
though.
not. It's not paranoid speculation. You can look at throughout history where empires, and America is an empire, don't act and they fall. I know that some of y'all are pro multipolarity. I am not. I want to continue American.
I feel like most empires fall after they, quote unquote, act a little too much.
In 30 years because we failed to act now.
Any,
just think...
hold on,
do you
Gibbs.
really
I want
think-
to respond to this. Gibbs, by threatening Denmark, we make it less likely for them to be our ally in the future.
Right.
More likely
Well, I
for
mean,
them to be friends with.
What have they
people
really
like
done with it for us lately? What have they done for us lately?
Well, you're talking about all these space bases that are there. You're talking about all these minerals, all this oil that they have that we need. So there's that we need apparently so badly.
Gibbs, do you
Tell
really
me,
think
what have they done
we're
for us lately?
do
Like,
you
what has
think
Denmark came in and fought a war for us lately?
do you really think our national security
And Denmark was in
is likely to control
Afghanistan.
Greenland?
Yeah, absolutely, I do. And like, as for the Denmark
In
thing,
what
everybody's
way?
just
Wait, can you hold on? Paint that picture for me. What do you think is going to happen?
Russia controls the Arctic Circle. China maybe controls portion of the Arctic Circle. If we don't get control of Greenland, we lose access to resources. They control trade routes. I mean, they're building. China's got more submarines than we do now. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff we can look at. I absolutely think it's essential that we move forward, taking over some of these areas. I've said it for a long time, long
Paint
before
the
Trump
picture
got
for
on.
me. Like, what is going to happen exactly? Russia and China through the Arctic Circle are going to invade Canada and then America?
No, they're going to cut off access to resources we need. They're going to bleed us out. I mean, y'all are acting like we can't see examples of this throughout history. Like, it's never like one
Dude,
kind.
we get
kills
a
us,
lot
it's
of
death
our
by
natural.
1,000 cuts.
We get a lot of the resources we would get from Greenland from China.
Right, I understand that, and we can
It
stop
benefits
getting
the
it from them.
Chinese to sell it to us.
Yeah, if in the interim, and Trump's about to start a trade war because they're all the money that we're sending them is being used against us. I don't understand why this is a hard concept for y'all to follow along. Like,
I'm curious how long you've been worried about this exact issue, because I speculate it's been about 5 days ago when Trump first made
well,
this speech.
if you watch any of my shit, or no, you've been on panels with me where I've sat here and said we need to bring back Manifest Destiny 2.0 long before I've ever even heard Trump talk about this. So, you know,
I never
maybe
heard
he's
you
just coming
talking
to the
about
light.
taking over countries, especially Greenland.
I mean, we shouldn't have gave Iraq back either. We should have stayed in Afghanistan, converted them too. I mean, I think it's been the biggest mistake foreign policy wise to give any of these countries back.
So Vietnam should have ended.
You know,
No,
Okay.
not when you're a little
It's
ape.
quite
you know,
non-thought
we weren't.
aside.
I don't know, we were winning there.
Go ahead, Paula.
The international system is anarchic, which means there's no overarching authority.
I have to
over
speed it up for her.
Individual states, and we don't. These are always shifting. You know, the power within these states are always shifting, and people maneuver and states are maneuvering, within this to maintain their own autonomy. Everybody is doing that.
Yes, but at least for the last 30 to 50 years, if not longer. I would say that they did it within the context of America being the 800-pound gorilla in the room, right? America was the one that was able to exert its influence first, most, and best in a large portion of the world. Not all of it, obviously, right?
Well,
I would.
I
Fair
kind of agree sort of with Wick, whether or not that's morally right or not, whatever. But, okay, let me ask you this, Wick. Do
Please.
you think that Russia and China are in any kind of rush to have a direct military confrontation with the U.S.?
No.
Right. So this whole idea of like the plot of fucking Red Alert 2 happening if we don't buy Greenland is retarded, right?
Yes.
The one exception is Taiwan. I think that China is looking to retake Taiwan.
Forget
and
Taiwan.
They would.
Though. Yeah,
they might like that
maybe.
would bring it
But keep
into
it on
conflict
Greenland.
with America.
Keep it on Greenland. If we don't buy Greenland, are we going to see the Soviet blimps from Red Alert flying over New York City?
No.
Almost certainly not.
I mean, not tomorrow, but maybe 30 years from now. I mean, like,
That's a
like,
huge fucking maybe, dude.
Hold on. You'll act like, okay, so we do stuff for maybes all the time. You know, like, that's how we elect leaders. I mean, that's what democracy is. Maybe this guy will change shit. Like, all the time. I want to ask Wick a question, because Wick was asked this. Wick, so you sat here, and you were like, oh, they're our ally, and I asked you what they do. Would you agree with this statement? And I know it's true. Everybody likes the guy at the club that buys bottle service. Right?
Sure.
I don't drink.
Okay, well, sure, right?
Yeah, when
so
you get
same
free
thing.
stuff, I love my super chatters such as Zephyr Hash, which just give me $5 to say we might be seeing Wick changing his opinions from unipolar to multipolar in real time. Because how bad unipolar sides arguments are. Look, Gibbs is a great guy, but he is just wrong here. But carry on.
No, I would ask. Okay, same thing with this, right? We've been footing the bill for NATO, all these other little police actions, all this stuff. We've been footing the bill with our manpower. We've been footing the bill with our military, like our munitions. We've been footing the bill for with financially, all these different ways. You know, of course, all these people love us. We're their friends.
Because it is in our best interest to do so.
Until we want something that doesn't align with their interests, and then suddenly, oh, it's so terrible. That guy's a piece of shit. And then they go and they make these trade deals, do all this stuff.
Can you give an example, a concrete example of how you're putting the bill for
sure.
everything and you don't get anything in return?
Yeah, I mean, like, sure. Like, let's look at Afghanistan. They weren't there for us. They sent, like,
Yes, they
piecemeal
were.
numbers.
Denmark
No, they weren't.
specifically
They
was.
sent
Denmark
piecemeal numbers.
specifically
Okay,
was in
how many
Afghanistan with us.
Yeah, they were like a small portion, piecemeal about.
What
like
are you
1,000.
talking about?
How many times? Hold on, wait.
the US.
Is it over 10,000 troops? They sent. They sent over 10,000 troops. If it's no, then they can shut the fuck up.
Why is it the threshold?
They didn't do
Why is
nothing.
10,000 the threshold?
I don't know, because we sent thousands and thousands overseas. I just picked an arbitrary number. Like, because everybody wants to give these countries credit for sending 300 peacemakers, 1,600 peacemakers, when we sent, you know, thousands upon thousands everywhere. We died with the manpower. We spent the money, all our money spent. They weren't even spending their own.
I think Wig looked it up. Denmark sent 9,500 troops, so like almost 10,000 troops.
Should have been taking advantage of us, and then saying they're our best friend.
I want
They
to say
have their own interests. They have
So
their own
exactly,
interests.
and so it's in our interest to tell them to fuck themselves if they don't want to agree with ours.
Okay,
And
I
then
got a specific number. Do you know how many troops Denmark sent?
Sure.
9,500. So not
Wow,
quite
110,000.
10,000.
It's amazing that I picked that number specifically.
Also, it's not just Denmark. Also, like their geographical location is actually beneficial for us to be alliances with like other countries like Europe. And if we do this shit to Denmark, you're like for certain other European countries, Eastern Europe.
This is where I was trying to talk so fast. This is what I was talking about. If we fuck over Greenland, it's not just going to be Greenland that isn't going to be happy with us. It's also going to be probably most of Europe. And for all, you know, these issues we have in the Middle East, the Ukraine-Russian thing, the Israel shit, all over the globe, Europe is not only just like a great trading ally, a good a peace ally, for our military, Europe is a very like strategic geographical location for us too. So these places benefit us in more ways than just one. So it's not like it's in our best interest to just piss them off for almost no reason at all. So again, like, it's not just going to be Denmark that's mad at us. It's going to be Germany, the UK, France, Italy, all these places. Not okay. And as well as many other nations throughout the world.
European countries, even like Germany, France, the UK, are probably going to at least sanction us or like have some kind of I'm just saying it's good to have these people.
They're not gonna shit. They live off our teeth.
The most important.
They don't.
Kind of I'm just saying it's good to have these people.
They're not gonna shit. They live off our teeth.
The most important.
They don't have to.
territory
Go ahead,
in Europe
Paula.
is Germany. The most important territory in Europe is Germany, and I think Trump's policy is going to be to help Germany re-establish its military function back in order that it can. Sorry.
Well, you say it's the most important territory in Europe. Can you expand upon that in your view? Why
This
would
is
you
why
say that?
at the end of Second World War, this is why there were so many people. You know, the Russians were there, the British were there, the Americans were there. They spent so much time there rebuilding it because it is the center of Europe. They didn't bother with the other states. They let you know the other states go to Russia because they're not as strategic as Germany is.
Well, not after World War II. It was a race to Berlin between the Soviet Union and the U.S., and we pretty much divided the line where that race ended. For the most part, it wasn't that we abandoned these other countries. It's that the Soviet Union was
Germany's
a
the
power.
biggest economy.
It was a multipolar world at that time, right? And Soviet Union was like, oh. It was bipolar world specifically. The Soviet Union was like, oh no, these are ours because this is where we are, and we didn't want to fight them at the time, and so that's where it ended up. I don't think we did it because Germany was the most significant portion of Europe. It might have been at the time, but at least today, it might be. I just don't know that it is. I don't know if currently. I would say that Ukraine is
No,
the most
but this is what
important,
Trump is going to be doing. He's going to be taking the U.S. troops out of there, but not before Germany kind of regains some of its power there, some of its military kind of presence there, so it can actually do its job.
So do you think Germany would have an issue with us like invading Greenland and just taking it over forcibly?
I don't know. I can't read minds.
I promise you that they would probably have an issue with America
Yes.
coming in and taking over Denmark. They would. I think most of Europe would. It would signal
When did it
first
get
of all,
to America
Denmark is
against
a NATO
Denmark?
member, so that would
Greenland is Denmark.
break
Well, here's
NATO.
No, there's an easy way around that, Wick. I have an easy solution to not even break NATO. You ready for this? Because Denmark has recognized that Greenland already has a strong independence movement to break away from Denmark. We just let Greenland. We helped them.
Yeah, you don't think we would get
You know,
sanctions for
assets,
breaking
we've done
NATO?
that before. Push them along to help become their own country, and then as soon as they're their own country, then we invade because Greenland. And we recognize that Greenland's no longer part of NATO because Denmark's not with them. And then no problem, tit for tat, Denmark can say, "Oh, we told y'all that was coming when you wanted independence, but you didn't listen to us." And then Denmark is, justified. They lost an area where there's really more cows than people, and some resources that
Look,
we could use.
We would be having a different conversation if Greenland wanted to become the 51st state or something. If there was a sizable portion of Greenland who was like, you know what, we kind of do want to join America, then we could have a conversation with that. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with something like that, but that is not the conversation we're having. We're having a conversation where Trump has at least alluded to, right?
Again, I don't want to be the fucking super dramatic, like, crazy person, like, Trump dictator thing again. But isn't this, like, literally exactly what dictators do? They, like, take over other countries that they want unjustifiably. Beyond all of the don't trust the media and the fake news and the I'm trying to steal a fucking election. Besides all of that, I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying. Not saying he is. It's just a little, kind of similar.
Wants to either buy or annex Greenland against the
Because
will.
China is there. He's making these things because China is there already. He's not doing if China wasn't there.
China is there in the sense that they have infrastructure there to mine earth minerals and things like that.
Yes.
Yes.
Mining project.
That does not, in my opinion, justify us annexing Greenland. I think that what that does justify
I don't
is
think
us
we will
also
annex
building
Greenland
infrastructure
any-
there.
anytime
Well,
soon.
to argue with that, Wick, you notice like the two, like other than the Canada, which I don't know how serious he is or not with Canada, it seems like it's more of a threat to get them to play ball economically. I'm not, that's the thing about Trump is nobody's really sure, and that's part of why he's a good negotiator. People bash that because they're like, it sounds crazy, but it's sometimes, the method is in the madness. And when I look at this, I think he's actually been pretty smart strategically. One, he's bitched about the NATO not people carrying their weight. When he did this the first time, after he did this, I think we can all agree that it became better because all of NATO started increasing their funding to meet or exceed what they were required to. So like when he did this the first time, threatened to pull out, they got whatever. This is just a good way to negotiate and threaten NATO. One, with secondly, if it came down to like, hey, we really absolutely need this for strategy, there's nobody there. It'd be an easy walk in the park. Same thing with Panama. We've already proved we can take over Panama in 5 days. We could do it again, and China wouldn't be able to get people off the ground, and they wouldn't send people over there to come fight us in Panama. Nobody's coming to Panama's aid, and Panama's not part of NATO. So it's pretty easy. You get 2 easy wins, expand the U.S., and gain control of our economic future. And it's very strategic by him, and I got to give him credit. My first country I would have tried to take over would have been Haiti. I would have done it under the guise of, saving the people there from barbecue. But this is actually probably a better move.
Man, it's so refreshing in a way to hear like imperialism advocated for so directly. I'm like not used to it, American imperialism specifically, but yeah, I mean, I do want to contend a little bit with Paula's point, and then I'll respond to what Wick said. But if it's about just trying to take places that China has an interest in extracting resources from, there's plenty of other places in the world that China extracts resources from that we might have an interest in theoretically. I think Greenland specifically is connected to the threat of the impact of the cost of the impact that a trade war will have on the cost of rare earth elements specifically. I think that's what this discussion is about now. That's what it was about in the first Trump term. And then Gibbs, I would say it back to you. Why do you want to start from a position of weakness? Why do you think we should be treating the world like we're constantly vulnerable to attack and threat? We're the biggest gorilla in the room, right? We're the most powerful country in the fucking planet. We have nukes. We have, you know, an awesome, you know, really expensive military. I mean, we're an economic superpower in addition to military.
Yeah, and then this bitch, she starts fucking bringing up little homemade cheap drones as if that's a fucking threat to us. Oh, well, the country is able to make little cheap drones now, and, you know, so America should be very scared. Okay.
Superpower.
We literally shot somebody through a fucking car and killed, like, the one person in a moving car. Well, maybe they were in traffic. I don't know, but either way, that's pretty fucking crazy. I don't think a little drone is something to worry about.
I don't understand why we have to negotiate from a position of like fear, you know, where we're worried about our adversaries taking us over constantly, unless you're suggesting that that's the nature of unipolarity, that we always have to be afraid of rising powers.
This is almost over, finally.
Unipolarity is a bad idea.
So I would like to give this example. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Can I just answer what he was going to say?
Please.
Okay, China's a potential regional hegemon, okay, and it's disrupting the balance of power already in Asia and challenging U.S. dominance. But what you said about, you know, America is the biggest gorilla in the room, has really expected success. I mean, nuclear war is out there, okay, but first, because the picture of war is going to change massively with drones. Cheap drones are going to change.
Been banned for the same words I typed here. I can appreciate your reserve. Later feel like I didn't ban anybody. I don't know if that's what you meant. But I didn't ban anybody.
Picture of war completely, and China is the leader in that technology. So we don't know what it's going to look like even in 10 years' time, and I think it's just making sure that just protecting borders. It's just really kind of creating those red lines and protecting borders, and because we really don't know what the world's going to look like in war, you know, even in 10 years' time with cheap drone warfare.
I understand, but let me give you to respond to that for a moment. I understand that, and I think that there is some. We absolutely need to invest in drone technology. I think it will be a part of combined arms and that kind of the modern, more economic war that goes on. But I don't think people quite understand just how effective America's military is.
And this is what I was going to say before he chimed in.
We hold ourselves back because if we were ever able, or if we were ever to unleash ourselves, it would be a horror beyond imagining on whatever our target was. And this is not counting nukes. I'm leaving that out of the picture for now. To give you an example, we were able to kill an enemy general in the middle of traffic, a traffic jam. We sent a missile, right, on the other side of the world that hit him and killed him, right? No one else around. I think the other guy in his car maybe got killed too. But it was like him and maybe one other guy was just taken out like that. That is the power and might of the American military. Yes, drones will change it in these things, but we are several tech levels higher than even, I would argue, Russia and China. China, in a lot of ways,
easily,
they're kind of a paper tiger. They are a regional power. They aren't someone we could just wave away, right? But I do think that we have a misunderstanding of where America lies in terms of military dominance. We are still quite a few steps above the next competitor.
And that's only the
strongest,
technology
if I may, the strongest air force in the world is the U.S. Air Force. The second strongest air force in the world is the U.S. Navy. Okay, we got them both. Right?
Yeah. So what I said there is that's only the technology we know about, by the way. But yeah, he just said the first strongest air force in the world is the U.S. Air Force, and the second is the U.S. Navy. Yeah. So I don't know, these little like, oh no, these little drones. So we don't. You know, I don't know, just whatever the fuck she said.
Right. So, like, I just, yeah, that's my point. Go ahead.
Can I respond? Can I add to that quick?
Go ahead.
Quick. Look, so yeah, totally, right? We are the world's preeminent military power, and it's really not even that close. I mean, China has more soldiers. Russia, I think, technically has more nukes, right? But we're the preeminent military power. We're unmatched in military power, and it's because we invest so much money in defense spending. But isn't the whole point of investing that amount of money in defense spending being primarily to use it as a deterrent, right? In other words,
Absolutely.
don't fuck with us, right? So doesn't it kind of betray that whole line of thinking to then use that powerful military to invade a sovereign country, you know, as a national security issue, to say we're afraid of being invaded by Russia or China through fucking Greenland? It's you know, it's an indication that we have no faith in this ultra powerful military we've spent all this money building up.
No, I think it's a better analogy is we have no faith in the current world system that's set up. Like, we don't have faith in our enemies. You know what? I agree. I actually will agree with you on Twitter. I think it does show us a healthy amount of fear and skepticism from other people. And it's not necessarily a position of fear. I'll give you an example, and we use it as here's a native animal to Texas. I think it's a native animal, a large part of the United States. It's a mountain lion, a cougar, a puma. You know what I'm saying? And they, big cats, they roam. They're hyper carnivore. They have no natural predators. However, you know, whenever another big cat comes into their land, they will hunt it down. They'll fight it out. Or, you know, but still they'll remain skittish and afraid of interacting with other big predators, like, say, a grizzly or something else, right? Because why? You don't want to jump on a grizzly's back, right? You know, so sometimes you have to act preemptively. This is a case where we need to act preemptively. Like, the idea that we'll always be the world's superpower military is laughable. There's always some new tech advance coming that can offset whatever we got. I saw a guy just yesterday, he rediscovered pauldrons, basically, and they were now selling pauldrons that are bulletproof. What's next? Drones are going to replace aircraft. Like, who knows? There's all sorts of, like, tech coming. And China has the manufacturing to produce all of it, but we've let it all go to waste.
Again, this is all just paranoid, unbased,
I don't disagree that we need
paranoid,
to
baseless
our
speculation.
military advantage, our technology advantage, but I don't think that threatening or annexing Greenland, China, or Panama is the way to do that. We are kind of coming up, well, Canada. I don't want for other reasons, but fair enough. I guess. Yeah,
Haiti,
we're just look. I
would
think
you be in
we've
favor
kind
of
of.
saving the people in Haiti, Wick, and like giving them American
I'm fine with
lives?
military interventionism to.
Do you think that if we made them a
others.
special economic zone, like, say, I don't know, Guam or Puerto Rico, gave them the same rights as Puerto Rico, you think the average person in Haiti's life would improve?
Probably.
Okay, do you think that since they're such a third world country, the manufacturing and potential in that area is anywhere up to go from zero? Yeah, so what I'm saying is, then you also should be a fan of imperialism, because Greenland, basically untapped resources. Panama.
Greenland isn't Haiti.
Same
Greenland
thing.
isn't
Haiti,
having these
same-
huge issues, right? Greenland's, as far as I know, just kind of doing its thing. It doesn't want us, right? I mean, it doesn't want us to like take it over, but it is part of NATO. It is someone we trade with. It is someone we can compete with China in terms of infrastructure and in terms of trade and in terms of rare earth minerals. We can
you're not
absolutely
concerned
compete with
about
them on
allies
an
changing?
economic level.
Look at like the UK. In 30 years, do you think the UK will even be our ally, or are they going to be like a new Islamic
Man,
state?
I don't know.
Why wouldn't they be?
Well,
Where is this fear coming from?
Because interests change, as demographics change, as populations die off, as populations rise, as regional shifts change, as different like resources.
Things
become
change.
like, allies aren't
That's
always
why
your ally.
shit changes. So we should just like assume that the UK won't be our ally in 30 years. Because why? Because things change. That's what I call baseless fear.
There's no
Like,
reason
I don't
to
know
believe
why
it's
you
happening
think
though.
If you want to maintain allies, maybe you should like not have this type of
Because
rhetoric.
we're the only ones doing it. We've been the only ones upholding all this for so long. Everybody wants to be your friend when you foot.
Right, and if you're worried about them not being your ally, maybe you just shouldn't threaten them. Again, like, alright, this is almost over, thank God, because I'm like a broken record at this point. I have nothing more to say.
No, the minute we said, hold on, the minute we said, let's collect, everybody starts getting pissy. Like,
So you're saying the United States foots the bill for everything. So
yeah,
how is it?
we're the guy buying bottle service.
How are they the greatest economic power? How does that?
Because we have the most superior system of capitalism.
You're saying you're being taken advantage of all this time, and yet you're the greatest economic power?
Because we've had dominance. Yeah, basically we've had dominance for so long that we've been able to like get away with not like, oh, they've had bad trade deals and not ours. Now maybe there's a little less to go around. It's time to pay the piper. We've been footing the bill. We've been buying the bottle to club every time. Time for you to nut up and pay the piper, or get the fuck out of our way so we can continue this American excellence that we've been doing.
Or maybe we're the greatest economy in the world because of the way we do things.
Wait, so with the demographic shift, are you implying that the numbers of refugees, Muslims going into the UK will make it such that the UK will not be an ally of ours in 30
who
years?
knows? Turkey's not really our ally. They're part of NATO. It'd be 30 years from now, 40 years from now. It could be ISIS.
Well, I think
ISIS of UK. I don't know.
Hold on.
It's
Dude,
unbased.
there are a lot of non-white countries that are allies of the U.S. or they're
Who cares if they're white or not? It could be any demographic. Like, it doesn't matter if they're white, black. If like 1,000,
But
a million white people move to South Africa. Yeah, because that's one that we know is shifting. Like, if like a million people move from Norway to like South Africa tomorrow, that'd be a demographic shift. There's demographic shifts that change local politics all the time. Are you disagreeing with that?
No,
Okay,
well,
British
local
Prime
politics
Minister.
are different
Hold on,
than
we do have a British
international
person here that
relations,
can
first
speak
of all,
to this. Go ahead, Paula.
How does it feel like living the ISIS of the UK?
Well, you know, our communist prime minister is threatening to break contact with America already.
I rest my case.
Why?
He'll try and do that. He can try and do that, but I mean, he's not going to be there for much longer.
Yeah,
Like I said-
I do not fear Britain and American relations taking a collapse. I don't think.
I'm just hoping Trump
But
will.
you never
give
know
us,
if they could, though. They could, though, right, Wick?
But
A
why
lot
would
of
you?
things.
Why
You
would
know what could happen? You could make an actually a coherent point. It could happen.
I
It
made a
hasn't
coherent
yet,
point. I'm sorry.
right?
Charles,
It
but
hasn't yet, but it could.
Everything
It's
I've
possible.
happened in history. Like y'all, you sit here and want to say, "Oh, don't make a coherent point." I can point to thousands of horrible historical examples that's happening throughout since the dawn of time, and then you want to go, "I have the audacity to act like I'm not making a coherent point."
Because
I'm
why
sorry,
would
it's
you
too big
ruin?
brain for you. I'm sorry.
Why would you ruin good relations with countries we have, based off of an unsubstantiated fear of something that could go wrong in the future?
Okay, gang. Look, we are running out of time. This has been a discussion. I do want to hit right, like.
Right. So, yeah. Anyways, what I said there.
Just before we go, right? I do want to say that there is a benefit. I am not against American hegemony. I like American hegemony. Pax Americana, I think, is a good thing. However, the question.
All right.
becomes,
You said
how
closing
do we-
statement.
Can we maintain it? Because that is
Finally.
in the with China and Russia gathering influence around the world, right, and trying to exert that influence. And I think that it is in question whether or not in the next 10 years it will be the American hegemony that we know and love. I hope that it is. If it is not,
Actually, I'm gonna skip over these. Everybody just repeats himself. Yeah. Okay. Gee, that was fun. This is why I don't cover politics anymore. As much, I guess. All right. Bye, losers. If you don't like and I ruined that. If you don't like and subscribe to my channel, I'm gonna annex your channel. So you better do that.